guys, you know what time it is. It's your boy David at the Irish Hotspur, Ireland's #1 Spurs fan. And on this Tuesday night, we bring you your weekly show called The Boys, Tottenham Boys Making All the Noise. And of course, it's Jack Kanicki in the hosting seat, Ben from We Are Tottenham TV, and Sean from Spurs Talk Show. A lot to talk about tonight. What are the plans for January? Is there a standoff between Conte and Daniel Levy over a new contract, amongst other things? But Jack, how are you keeping, my man?
Keeping pretty well. It feels like all of a sudden now, once you kind of start to loom with November looming, you start to think about kind of January transfer window. Of course, with maybe the 2 defeats, we're starting to kind of think about how soon can that come, and what can Spurs do to maybe fix some of the problems. So I'm looking forward to maybe how some of the boys can dissect some of Conte's comments today. Some of them were quite interesting, and also as well maybe just what needs to happen in order to kind of fix some of the problems that we're having right now, Dave. So looking forward to it. Also a nice kind of easy, simple sort of show. It's going to be a good discussion.
Simple, Jack. Get rid of dumb, dumber, and twat at the back, and we'll be fine. But Shawnee, how are you keeping, my man?
Wonderful, guys. Good to be back with you. Hopefully the internet will hold up. And I can't wait to debate and disagree with Ben vehemently throughout the show.
If there is anyone from Sky that's watching, that's a Spurs fan, help a man out down here and get his internet sorted out. Benji, how are you keeping, brother?
Yeah, I mean, the last week or so has been difficult, going up to Old Trafford, getting back at 4 or 5 in the morning after that shit show, and obviously on the weekend as well. Luckily, I wasn't there. I was in the studio doing the watch along, so it was still hard to take though, but looking forward to the show and happy to be on with you guys.
No, look, the couple of past results have been very, very hard to take because I think we all expect better from our club. But look, we're going to crack straight into it. Use the guys' time wisely. So feel free at any stage. Sometimes the chat can get hot and heavy. Sometimes it doesn't. But if it does, and you want your comment to stand out, feel free to get in a super chat, put it in. We'll all have a great discussion on it. And plus, just a great way to support everything we're doing here. But of course, as always, part of the deal with you guys tuning in. We know it's a big, bad world out there. Cost of living has gone through the roof. Get your comments in the chat, and we'll bring them up as we go along to the very best of our ability. And also smash that like button along the way. It also goes a long way for us. But Jack, I'll take it over, my man.
Let's take it over here. And we're going to have to talk about some of the injuries here that we've been dealing with, Ben. Neither Christian Romero nor Pierre-Emile Højbjerg were pictured in training ahead of Tottenham Hotspur's Champions League clash with Sporting Lisbon. Following that 2-1 defeat, Antonio Conte revealed that the pair had sustained fatigue-related injuries, with Romero picking up a calf issue, while Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, the Viking Salzburg, was having trouble with his thigh. Is Conte's sort of reluctance to rotate starting to maybe catch up with him, do you think, here, Ben?
It's a double-edged sword, isn't it? I mean, because the players that we've got to rotate are clearly not good enough, and that's why he's reluctant to rotate. But persistent playing of these players, like the players that you've mentioned, I think is playing into the factor of fatigue. So it's a difficult one because I don't know which way to go. I mean, probably got to look at the player welfare before anything else. So we probably should be rotating, but the players that we've got to rotate are clearly not good enough. So it's hard to know which way to go.
It is hard to know which way to go. And do you feel like with what you just said there, maybe Antonio Conte doesn't have the proper sort of, quality replacements to rotate? Do you feel like that's the case more so with Romero, with Højbjerg, both? I mean, which one?
Especially Romero, because you take out Romero, you bring in Davinson Sanchez, you're talking about like levels and levels and levels and levels apart. You saw Davinson.
I thought he was class, though, Ben. I thought Sanchez was good. I thought Sanchez was quality. That's what people tell me. He's unbelievable, Sanchez.
No one's ever told you that. That's fabricated in your head.
Dave likes to think.
People have told me he's brilliant.
Someone says one good thing about him, so apparently he's the best player in the world. But no, I think that the quality between Sanchez and Romero is absolutely clear as day. You saw on the weekend how uncomfortable he is on the ball, and he's shown that time and time again. I mean, he can step in from time to time and do a job, but I think those are coming a bit few and far between now. So it's hard one. But in the midfield, I think that the midfield should be rotated more because we've got the likes of Bissouma, we've got the likes of Skip that aren't getting too much game time at the moment. And I think both of them are fine players. So I wouldn't mind a bit more rotation in the midfield, but in the defence, it gets a bit more tricky because apart from Romero, our defence ain't good at the best of times. So bringing in the backup players to them, you're talking about a big loss of quality.
Like you said, levels, and then some more levels on top of that, and differences. Sean, do you feel like Conte's reluctance to maybe rotate is starting to maybe kind of catch up to him, or is maybe starting to cause him some issues? I think I agree that with Romero, maybe he doesn't have exactly a lot of options, but with the likes of Højbjerg, as much as he is made of titanium, he is starting to maybe kind of, get a bit tired, perhaps fatiguing. Even Conte admitted it. It's fatigue-related injuries. Should he have maybe rotated a bit more in there in the midfield this season?
Look, I think there's there's not enough accountability given to the competent players in this squad. I think all season, especially right now with the 2 bad results, everyone's pointing to the weakness of the bench. People aren't factoring in how many injuries that we've had prior to this current system. You know, just to name off Hugo Lloris was carrying a knock after the international break. Perisic, Sessegnon. There's not a week that goes by that one of them isn't icing something. Ben Davies had a chip in his knee. Romero's had 2 injuries. Doherty's on the back of 2 months missing and then 2 months at the end of last season. Ollie Skip, we couldn't play him before now because he's been recovering from his surgery and his injury. Then you go to the forward line and you think, look, Decky, Richarlison, Lucas Moura, they've all had injuries. I think that not enough perspective is being placed on the fact that Tottenham have had 11 key men from our squad out injured either at the same time or at different times in the first 10 games, 11 games of the season. And that's a reality that rotation doesn't help you with that. I know that Højbjerg now has an injury and Romero's current injury, but I also think that, we're making this comparison between Romero and Sanchez. Romero from last season versus Sanchez, I 100% agree with you that they're chalk and cheese. Romero from this season, when he has been fit, he hasn't been anything like as good as he was last season. And I don't think we're holding our good players accountable enough either for the problems that we're facing.
Yeah, but Sean, even because Romero hasn't been that good this season, he's still miles better than Sanchez. Still.
Yeah, according to Ben, he has to drop a lot of levels.
I'm not entirely sure that's...
Told you, Ben. Told you, Sean.
No, I'm not saying that Sanchez is great, but I'm saying Romero this year has been... I said this to you on your show the other day, yesterday, Ben. I listen to every channel that does these combined 11s against the top six teams, and you'll find the same names that are thrown in from Tottenham. You find Harry Kane, Sonny, you'll find Romero, and maybe like a Højbjerg or Bentancur, or maybe a Lloris thrown in, depending on who you're playing against. This season's Romero doesn't get into any of those top 6 teams. This season's Romero doesn't. This season, Sonny doesn't get into any of those top 6 teams combined 11. We are, I think, guilty of throwing... I've said this phrase so many times recently, I'm getting bored of saying it, but until I find a replacement, I'm going to run with it again. I think we're guilty of throwing the baby out with the bathwater, and we are holding poor players accountable for when good players are dropping the ball. I think that there's so much blame to go around. And when it comes to Conte's rotation, to get back to the specificities of the question, I don't think he could have rotated Skippy in any earlier. I was delighted with Skippy's performance against Newcastle. I thought Skippy played really, really well, and I'm happy to see him come back and put in a shift. Bissouma, we've heard from Conte, the reason why he hasn't played is because he hasn't adapted well enough. Right? And in terms of Eric Dyer, you can't rotate someone who has such a specific role
and who doesn't have competition.
Who doesn't have a competition. You can't put Romero in there because that's an experiment. You can't put Sanchez in the center because that's an experiment. We haven't seen that. And you can't put Longley in there yet because that's an experiment. So I don't think there's a problem with rotation. I think the problem really stems down to a massively unfortunate injury list. And I think that
in the timing of the injuries, like you
timing
said,
of the injuries. And I genuinely think that we need to hold our best players more accountable rather than just throwing all the mud at the players that we know we need to improve on in the January window.
So just on that though, Sean, just as a quick follow-up, do you feel like maybe then I think some people have called this before the untouchables, of Tottenham Hotspur? Is there, do you believe in that sort of concept of maybe the untouchables? Because I think there are some good players in the team that aren't in the untouchables. Like, I don't think a Højbjerg is necessarily an untouchable. Everybody loves to slam on that guy whenever there's a bad game, but perhaps maybe somebody like a Harry Kane and a Sonny and a Lloris maybe are the untouchables of the team, or maybe even a Bentancur sometimes can be a bit untouchable. It feels like, do you feel like there is some sort of armor that maybe certain players have that maybe others don't have, would you say?
I think there is 100% there is, and I understand why. I've always understood why when we were having this debate before the Sonny hat trick, we were having it for a month, whether or not Sonny needs to be, rotated, rested, dropped, whatever you want to call it. I understand the people that said absolutely not. You'd play your best player.
What a good decision it was to rest him for that game.
Well, I think I'm not entirely sure about that, right? But for me, I feel like I said this 1,000 times on your show over the last year since I've been streaming with you guys. For me, the most important thing in life is meritocracy. If you're good enough, you should play. And the second that you're not, if there's somebody that's chomping at the bit on the training field and that deserves a chance, give it to him. And if he doesn't take it with open arms, if he doesn't grab the ball by the horns and run with it, then you rotate him out again and you give the other guy a chance. And you should always be playing. I believe you can have poor form, but class is permanent. But after a series of poor performances, if you have options available and you're not taking them, then you're setting the wrong message and setting bad precedents, in my opinion.
Definitely.
I disagree slightly with what Sean has to say.
On the untouchables, what does it do?
Yeah, in terms of we don't tend to call Kane, Romero, and people like this out. The reason why we don't is because, as proven against Newcastle, these players can step up and start off like a house on fire and get a foothold in the game and do their job. But when you've got idiots at the back line who have consistently let you down under a number of managers now, and it's not just Conte, it's been Nuno, it's been Jose, the Poch before he got sacked, same thing with some of these guys. And until that common denominator is turned round, every manager, and the same as Kane, Son, Højbjerg, people like that, are always taking the hit for these guys in terms of at Newcastle the weekend, every other player, bar Dyer, started off like a house on fire at the weekend. Dyer starts misplacing passes, gives the control of the game completely away to Newcastle, sends it in their favour. And then after that, everyone else gets hit with a bit of criticism. For me, until the common denominator and the real problem at this football club, which is players that get defended left, right, and centre. And I know Ben says I make it up in my head, but I don't, because people have been in my chat for the last year and a half defending these guys, defending Ben Davies, defending Dyer, defending Sanchez. And look, Ben, yourself and Sim have been guilty of it too. I've heard you defend these guys. And for me, I just think until these guys are gone, I just refuse to put blame at certain players' door. When Harry Kane has been top goal scorer nearly every season since he's got here. Son has delivered nearly every season since he's got here. Romero was phenomenal last year, but of course his form is going to drop. And do you know why it's dropped? Because as a defensive tree, you need players to help you out. If the two guys you're in there with are all over the shop, it's going to make you all over the shop in terms of positioning wise. And it does, Sean. It does.
But they was fine last season.
Yeah, because Dyer and Davies were playing well last season, like everybody was saying. This season,
but why are you saying that it's Dyer and Davies that are playing poorly this season? Why could you not make the same argument to say that Romero's
because it has a knock-on effect, Sean.
But you could make the same argument in the reverse, that Romero's poor performance has shocked Dyer's confidence and Davies' confidence. Like
Romero's been out injured. Dyer hasn't. So the common denominator again is Eric Dyer. The thing is, the problem is, I've played in a team. Like if you've played in a team, even Astro, Sean. If people have played Astro, you know, if there's a guy beside you that has two left feet and he's kicking the ball all over the place, you're going to be all over the place because you don't know what to expect. You don't know whether to cover the guy, and then that time he takes a good control and you look out of position, or you don't know whether not to cover him, and then he lets the ball go loose, and then all of a sudden you look out of position. It's a complete knock-on effect. And at the end of the day, until the common denominator and the root of this problem, which is the same guys that have been here, Eric Dyer, 8 years, about to be handed a new contract. Someone tell me what he's done in this football club and deserved to be able to be here for 8 years. 9 years. He's going on a testimonial.
Yeah, testimonial next season.
Davies is close to a testimonial, which is 10 years. What have these guys physically done for Tottenham Hotspur that they deserve to be at a football club this long? It's madness. And until these guys go, and I've heard the same under Jose Nuno about these players and everything else about, you know, the better players, they need to do more, blah, 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 blah. You think they're not pissed off with the likes of them guys at the back as well? They were in full control at Saturday, and then all of a sudden, numpty fucking can't get a bit of composure, as much composure as a pedo in a fucking playground. It's absolutely ridiculous, you know, and that's it at the end of the day. They get nervous as well with these guys. And for me, I refuse to lay blame at their door when they're the ones that have stood up amongst the shit season in, season out.
And what are your thoughts here?
At the end of the day, we all know these players. We all know these players are not good enough to be starting for Tottenham. But, you know, the squad is at where it's at, right? You can't berate these players for not being good enough. You've got to berate the scouting network. You've got to berate the people making the decisions to not bring in people to.
But I berate them too, Ben, because they're not turning around to Conte and going, "Oh, don't play me, I'm not good enough." So I also berate them too. If they know they're not,
you're not going to go round to Conte and say, "Don't play me because I'm not good enough." Who else is he going to play? Tanganga.
The thing is, I'm not going to blame Levy for what Dyer does on the football pitch. Eric Dyer is the one that walks over the white line. He's the one with the boots on. He's the one with the
Yeah,
shin
but
pad.
if you're not good enough,
I mean,
you're not good enough. You know
Oh,
what I mean?
yeah.
He can't, he's doing the best he can possibly do. Eric Dyer, Ben Davis, these guys are doing the best they can possibly do. Their quality is not there. They need men to come in and overtake them in the squad. And that's down to Daniel Levy and anyone that's making the decisions of who to bring in the players.
How many players could you realistically bring in, though, in one summer without disrupting the flow?
But these players have been here for much longer than one season. You know, they've been here for 10 years.
But they were great last year.
I was saying
they were great. Dyer and Davies were great. We're talking about Dyer specifically right now.
Well,
they were great last season, so I think they earned the right to not be.
I was saying this. I was saying this on your show, Ben, yesterday as well as the video I put out. You've got to understand where we were at as a squad under Steve Hitchin. Yeah, they try their best and everything else, and the quality is not good enough, and they find themselves in the team by default with not enough money spent on that area, but also because their attitudes were better than Ndombele's, Lo Celso, Ali's, the French mafia, the Welsh mafia, people like that. We were in so much of a state that unfortunately the other guys had to go first. These guys are still here. Hopefully they'll be next to go. But at the end of the day, people said to me all summer, get behind these guys for the season. I've done it, and ultimately they pissed me off and let me down. And I'm sorry, I can't support shit. I can't do it. I'm not supporting them anymore. I'm not doing it. They let me down every time I do it.
I feel like we're reaching and beyond getting on the territory where we're starting to move into maybe what needs to be done this January transfer window. Dermot here is saying Levy will back Conte. Big up Ben and Sean. Come on, you Spurs. Well, we'll be talking about that relationship between Mr. Levy and Antonio Conte. Don't you worry, Dermot. And then we also have just quickly a super chat here.
King delusion.
Take it away, Dave. Where was Kane and Son in the cup finals? They should be getting us over the line to win trophies. David, you're deflecting. Fact, he said.
Deflecting fact. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Was it not Serge Aurier that gave away the free kick against Man City that ultimately cost us the cup final? At the end of the day, look, we can sit there and blame Kane and Son and everything else, but who got us to them cup finals? I guarantee it wasn't Eric Dyer or Ben Davies, because guess what, Alex? Anytime they've played in some of the cup games the last few years, Colchester where we went out, Zagreb where we went out, Patras Tabrera losing away from home, and I can pick off many other games we get knocked out. So for me, look, it's not deflecting the blame. Kane, if you want to just ignore Harry Kane and Son stats over the last few years to defend Eric Dyer, Davies and Sanchez, don't start complaining when we don't get trophies, which is what you complain about at the end of the day. So you're telling me you think they're good enough to get trophies. That's fine. You're delusional.
I think if we find ourselves where Kane and Son are the problem, that's a big deal. If we find ourselves with Kane and Son is the issue, that's a big deal. I would say that would be bad if Kane and Son are the problem.
It's a team game. You need all 25 players pulling in the same direction. If you've just got Kane and Son, you're never going to win anything. You need a whole team.
And this year we haven't got Son.
Yeah.
Can I just say this panel's been going, this show's been going about 15 minutes, and it's been the fieriest first 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Nice and loose. Nice and loose. Nice and warm.
I like it.
You and Ben just want me to disagree with you. So I swear you just ring each other up before the show and be like, let's say stuff that'll trigger Dave.
Awesome. After Conte's press news, Levy needs to sell to the likes of Amazon instead of taking Tottenham down. This is sad. Give Conte what he wants or Levy out. And awesome, we are going to be discussing this plenty, my man. And what is, Antonio Conte demanding from Levy? Is there really an understanding between the two? Are they kind of on the same page? Do they see where each other are coming from? If that's not the case, then that definitely does mean then that Levy probably does need to consider actually kind of bending more towards Conte, because the moment we lose Conte, the moment we start losing a lot more like the Harry Kanes and the Sons of the world. But Dave, with the Antonio Conte sort of news regarding Levy, I mean, how do you think this is going? Maybe initial kind of thoughts, what's the temperature here?
Do you know what, Jack? I've mixed thoughts on this. And to be honest, no matter what I say, I'm going to get caned off either side. So it doesn't matter. So I'm going to say it. Look, for me, if Conte doesn't sign a new contract, you can't expect Tottenham to open the checkbook for him in January, not knowing whether he's going to be here after that. You can't expect him to go out and spend big cash on a project that they could use for the next project. Second of all, they also have to do everything they can, though, in my opinion, to try and tie him down to a new contract. So I think both people are a bit of a standoff, and I can understand it. Conte won't sign unless he knows he's going to get back in. I think he'd be stupid to sign before January because he will want proof. He will want the club to make steps to back him before he signs. Whereas I think Tottenham are looking for him to sign a new contract before they commit money. So I think we're at a bit of a standoff. Unfortunately, I think on this one, the board are going to have to give in just purely because fans love Conte. Well,
We're gonna
70% of the fans love Conte.
It's amazing. It's amazing though how quickly
99%.
that narrative though, like I was having a Twitter argument with well, not an argument, like a little debate back and forth with Brian Daigle and Danny Kiriakou and obviously some other people about this Conte out narrative. Like the day after the Manchester United game, I was like, this Conte out narrative, I was like, it doesn't exist, does it? I've never seen anybody. And then after this was just before the Manchester United one. Then after the Man United game, and then especially after Newcastle, it's mad. It's mad how quickly these narratives just suddenly emerge and how many people jump on the bandwagon because they're reactionary, It's crazy to me.
No, it's like it's like just a spring has sprung situation. They're all just coming out, like birds, I would say. But big up Asaman. What I would say as well, my man, is certainly it is going to be a discussion. We'll be talking about plenty this show. So we'll get you a good answer and really appreciate the support as well, my man. We are going to talk about the January transfer window, though, here, lads. And we do want to kind of discuss maybe what is actually the position that, Conte needs, for this summer. Conte said after Sunday's defeat to Newcastle that he could not work a miracle with this squad. He wants direct replacements for center half Tanganga and forward Hill and midfield Papama Sarr. What's the most vital position for you, Ben, that Spurs need to improve in this January window for you? Because we all know you can't really sign 7 or 8 players like we probably would like to, and we probably need to. So what would be kind of that position for you that's, you'd be very upset to see maybe Spurs not take a look at?
Centre back for sure. I think that we need someone in the middle, whether it be to replace Dyer or to provide competition for Dyer. We need someone there in the middle. So definitely a centre back needs to come in January. Right wing back and a creative midfielder as well. I think all 3 of them are vitally important. But I think if you ask me which one's the most important, I'd probably say the centre back, to be honest. But right wing back, very close second.
What do you feel like is maybe most vital for maybe pushing for a trophy as well as top 4, would you say, for Antonio Conte? Like, what do you think Antonio Conte, when going up to Daniel Levy, is maybe asking for the most? Like, what do you think is his sort of non-negotiable position, Ben?
Probably the defence. It has to be the defence because that's what's letting us down week in, week out, ultimately. But it's mad to me. It's absolutely mad to me to go into a season with a Conte system and have terrible wing backs. It just doesn't make sense. I think we've brought in Perisic, and I think he's well past his best, to be honest, from what he's shown in the Spurs shirt. I'm not too sure about Perisic so far.
It's been underwhelming. Yeah.
On the right-hand side, what?
Are you giving up on Perisic?
I'm not giving up on him. I'm just judging on what I've seen so far.
Yeah.
Oh no, I was just making sure because I remember you back Session to the hill. I was like, how can you give up on Perisic so quick?
The difference is Perisic is 33 and Session is 21.
There's a point there. One has time on the side.
Dave woke up this morning and chose war.
No, I'm just asking. Because I also heard him ask the question on the fan show the other day. I was about to come on and go, come on now, Ben, but I said I'll leave it.
What question did I ask?
You asked someone, when is it time to talk about Perisic? And I'm like, pretty sure Session's been here longer and has been a lot more underwhelming. So I think we should be talking about Session rather than Perisic first.
Perhaps it's a conversation about both.
At the end of the day, Dave, players, develop at different stages of their career. We've seen Perisic reach the top of the height of his career, and now we're seeing what he's showing at Tottenham Hotspur, which is nowhere near what he's shown previously in his career.
Yeah,
he's got his whole career ahead of him.
Yeah.
I'm really glad that I'm super glad that Ben is catching up with my opinion that Perisic is disruptive to the flow on the left hand side, because I remember Ben and Sim having a conversation on their channel and Ben dismissing it, saying, no, I've heard people saying this stuff before, but I don't buy into it. I was ahead of the curve on the whole Perisic and Sonny routine.
Where I sort of stand on it is it's most important to get the best out of Sonny. And, it's wherever it lies is if Perisic is underwhelming and if Session is underwhelming, whichever one gets the best out of Sonny is what we should go for. Because I think actually both of them can't really have a lot of bragging rights, either Session nor Perisic at this moment in time. But Ben, you kind of answered saying that the center back maybe for you is probably the most important. But you also mentioned, the wing back. Would it be a right wing back or would it actually be this left wing back that you've been maybe saying you've been a bit underwhelmed with? Would you push Perisic maybe up front or something like that? Would you bring in like Udogie back? How would you? What type of wing back would you bring in? I'm assuming a right wing back, but are you that frustrated with left wing back?
I think that I'd still like to give Perisic a bit of time because I know that the quality he does have, and maybe he can bring it out again. I mean, look, with Perisic, you can see
too.
The crossing ability with Perisic is clearly there. It's just everything else. I mean, he's had no pace whatsoever. He struggles to take on a man. He's defensively really poor.
Yeah.
This is just what I've seen so far in his Spurs shirt.
Defensively, he's absolutely awful, isn't he? And
Yeah,
he can't shoot,
he
Ben. Where's the Perisic that played for Inter and Croatia that when he
He's
gets
not
the
getting
chance
in
to have a
position,
crack?
Correct me if I'm wrong, though. Does Perisic not have more assists, goal involvements than Sessegnon?
Yeah,
he does.
Yeah, but a lot of them from a corner kicks and things. So
he has played more matches than Sessegnon.
Yeah, but he takes corner kicks because he has the quality to. Sessegnon can't even cross a ball, barely get it off the ground at times.
Okay, but what I would say that Perisic and this,
but he loves a low drive into the box, Dave. Sorry,
Perisic and Sessegnon, both of them have had opportunities, and even in the last game, to like where they're inside the box and they have the chance to shoot, and both of them like. It was the both of them were the weakest shots I've ever seen in my life, worse than Lo Celso's like corner kicks from back in the day. So neither of them particularly excite me going forward, and certainly Sessegnon has the edge defensively.
For this question though, for you, Sean, though, where is it that what's the most vital position that needs to be upgraded in January? Like, what's the position that when February 1st comes, you're very upset if maybe Spurs didn't address?
Yeah, I tend to agree with Ben. It's definitely centre back, but I personally would probably go for 2 centre backs if you can. If you can get somebody like a I don't know, a De Vrij or a Skriniar in because their contracts are coming up, or even if that's not necessarily that easy to do, if you can get like a Bonucci in on a short term thing, I don't know if that's even feasible, but we absolutely 100% need a centre back, and if we can get more solid and confidence in our centre back trio, then I think that we have. I think that the players that we do have going forward, obviously, it'd be nice to have if it wasn't January, if it was the summer, it'd be nice to be able to have the time to go and find the right players in all those positions. But I think that if you have more faith in the centre backs, then then I think the players that have the ability to go forward that we already have can do that in more with more confidence, and then that solves itself. It could solve its own problem in and of itself. I would say on the right wing back, obviously, we all know that needs to happen there. And if Spence gets loaned out, then we need to bring somebody in. I don't care who it is. I don't even know who it is. It's not going to be Hakimi, but whoever. Like we'll talk about that another time. I would also, for what it's worth, because I agree with Ben that Perisic is very underwhelming for me, and I think that Sessegnon also flatters to deceive and has zero confidence. If there's a way to go back to Udinese and say, I know we've got him coming in at the end of the season.
Hey, us again.
Hey, us again. But like, listen, if we give you an extra 4 or 5 million, can we get him now?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's possible.
The queue. Yeah.
Skip the queue, rather than have to wait until the summer. I don't know if it's possible, right? Because I know Udinese are doing bits and pieces in there only. But if that's possible,
fuck off.
Well, because Sean, he's playing so well right now, Udogie, that he is basically one of the best wing backs in Europe.
It's bloody frustrating.
It would be silly to get one in right now. You just want Udogie sooner than later.
Like, he's our player. We have the title for one of the best up and coming left wing backs, and yet Tottenham themselves are struggling with like the worst wing backs in the Premier League.
Don't say that. Jacob's seeing a home of steam off his ears.
Yeah, I think if we could go and figure out a way to get that done, we should. I don't know if that's possible, but if it is possible, we should do it.
And you said two center backs.
That's why we jumped in ahead of the position, didn't it, on Udogie, because we were the only ones willing to loan him back.
Yeah, fair enough, Ben. It's a good point. Man.
And you said 2 center backs, Sean. I mean, are these sort of center backs? What's the sort of traits maybe that you want to strategy to keep in mind? Maybe just quickly, like what type of center back? Like, do you want them to be better on the ball, maybe than the ones we have? What's important to you?
Yeah, from the central side of centre back, I want someone with better composure, with better speed of thought. I just
want 2 more long lays, basically, is what I think.
And better on the ball. But I also want someone who's decent in the air. Like, I feel like we're a mass. We never really challenge aerially too often, offensively and defensively. We're always at risk. If you watched against Newcastle, I said it before the game. Like, for me, I thought that we were going to be under threat because they've got 2 players in their back four that are 6'4" or taller, and it's a problem. And it was a problem all day long getting pinged. I know that before the mistake happened and after the mistake happened, Newcastle made most of their gains just peppering to the back post with Dan Burns, just being able to like cause all sorts of mayhem. Obviously, you can't necessarily go and find the left back that's 6'5" or whatever. But for me, I think that having somebody that's really competent in the air, that just takes control of the situation defensively and also throws a threat up front, I'd like that, because I don't think we have that in Romero. I don't think we have that in Eric Dyer. I don't think we have that in Longley.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying there, Shawnee. And Dave, kind of any quick thoughts maybe on, where you feel like Spurs need to identify? What is the position for you that you probably be kind of crying at night, Dave, that maybe Spurs didn't address?
Yeah, look, I probably don't have enough time to go on about really how I really wanted to be addressed. But for me, left side of centre back, right side of centre back, and a centre back. Actually, 2 centre backs. So that's 4 that's needed across there. While also taking the option up on Langley and just keeping Romero. Get every other one of them shitheads out of there. They're not good enough to be here.
Oh, you like Longley enough to keep him longer than this season, do you? Yeah.
Yep. I think he's just better on the ball. Like when you look at Ben Davies, he has to make run into Son's areas where you're like, what are you doing? Even if the ball comes to you, you can't control it. Whereas Langley doesn't need to do that because he can just pass it over to Sonny over the top and get involved. So I still
don't think Langley showed enough, though. I really don't think Langley showed enough. I mean, defensively, he looks poor to me.
I think he's the best. He's the best summer signing that we've had so far.
I think he's been better defensively than some of the others. I think nowhere near as shaky as
I would say
Davies on the back of your top there, Ben. Have you got Ben Davies on the back of that printed on the back?
You think Richarlison's been the best summer signing that we've had?
Yeah.
Wow.
I know.
He scored 2 goals in the Champions League.
Yeah. He's done sweet FALs.
Yeah. What's Langley done?
I think
he's got a couple of assists. He's actually got a couple of assists, I think.
Yeah, he got an assist yesterday.
Solid. He got completely done at Newcastle. He got completely done at the Emirates. I mean,
that Newcastle goal. That if you just watch that in its isolation with Almiron running at him, then it looks bad. But if you actually watch the entire transition of the play before it, I don't think you can really hold him accountable.
Yeah, I agree. And also Hugo could have done a lot better.
Yeah. He could have done better. He could have met him outside the box and took him out. But Session could have also done better. He was being falling around like a rag doll. He's too much of a girl, too much of a crybaby.
All three of them, Lloris, Session, and Langley, all should have done better.
But this is the problem. It all starts with unfortunately, I hate to bring it back to the guy, and I sound like a broken record, but people are talking about 2 years after I've tried to highlight it, so I will keep bringing it up since it's topical. But Eric Dyer, we were in full control of the game, and once he starts doing Numpty Dumpty things, everyone else their confidence crumbles around them, and it's a knock-on effect. And until you get someone else better in there, you will see Langley get better, you will see Romero get better, because as a tree, they'll all be able to defend a lot better as well. But as well, look, I do think maybe we do need to bring in another right wing back. It looks like they're looking to loan out Spence this January. And Matt Doherty, for me, you know how I feel on that guy. I think Emerson is actually much better than Matt Doherty. Hashtag save Emerson. I know people don't really like Emerson, but he came in against Newcastle and he done so much more going forward than what Matt Doherty done over 3 games. So for me, I would actually keep Emerson around. But yeah, for me, I think that's my priority, Jack, because it comes down to the old saying, and I'm going to trust this guy because he's got more trophies than most people I know. Sir Alex Ferguson, he said, attacks wins your games, defense wins your leagues. So, and he's got more leagues than anybody. So I trust what he says. So for me, it goes with the back line. Has to be up.
No, I'm liking it.
When average players have got low confidence, Eric Dyer, like he's someone who's like a bang average midfielder defender. And right now he's got 0 confidence. You can see he's rattled every time he gets the ball. Over the last sort of 2 or 3 games, he's just vulnerable. When that happens to key positions, everything falls apart. You need him to be full of confidence and playing to his ceiling in order to get by, like he did last year. And fair play to him last year. Him and Ben Davies were both pretty close to their ceilings most of the game and playing with full of confidence. When that starts to get ebbed away at, then you have to take a serious look and say, can we get what we want? Can we achieve anything like what we need to achieve this season with those players not playing with full confidence? And the answer, in my opinion, is no.
It's been a repeat thing under Jose Mourinho. They were top of the league. The confidence was shattered. They went on to have a stinker then after that. Same under Nuno. Started off the league well, 3 games. All of a sudden, their confidence took a dive, and then we went on to have a stinker. And I fear the same is coming again. I did warn people that this could happen because with some of these guys, unfortunately, right? And we know as Antonio Conte's system, it's well out there. Many people have said it. It's very mentally demanding and physically demanding. And some people can't keep up the demands. And my concern was they've had one, in my opinion, I know people are going to disagree, fine. But in my opinion, they've both had one good season since they've really been here, one standout season, and that was last season. Can they repeat that again, knowing their failures and flaws on their other managers? And unfortunately, it haven't. And I just think that Conte's regime is catching up on them. But again, people say, well, that's Conte's fault. No, because Jose's regime caught up on them. Nuno's regime caught up on them. And we're not going to see a change at this club in terms of playing style or performances until that is changed. And it's just that simple. And even if I'm wrong, at least try it, because it's the only thing we haven't really tried so far. We've tried hiring and firing managers, tried bringing in a director of football. We've tried getting more midfielders in here, a few more attackers, wing backs, etc. What we haven't tried is rotating that back line enough. So let's try that now.
Yeah, definitely worth the investment. I think could be tried. Yeah.
We don't have the players to rotate it. And
what
are you going to do? They're about to offer Eric Dyer a new contract, my friend.
We'll get into that if you have time, but I know you got a day with the Champions League, maybe set for another discussion for a future time, but definitely something Dave is going to dig into for sure, Ben. Alex again here. No, David, the GOAT players win trophies. Kane and Son failed every time. Fact is that Leicester City proved that point.
Now, do we wonder any reason why we don't win trophies when people are making Kane and Son the problem? I mean, honestly, now, this is the same guy that made excuses for Harry Winks for years, excuses for Dyer for years, excuses for Davies for years, excuses for Sanchez for years. He wanted Ali playing left back, centre mid and fucking striker. You know what I mean? Is there any wonder when you're trying to stick with the same guys that we don't win anything, but yet the guy goes around preaching around trophies? You want trophies, wake up and smell the coffee and call out the real culprits, the guys that you defend week in, week out, and you have done. Do not deny it. Don't sit there and go around trophies and then you're going to sit here and scapegoat Kane and Son to keep Numpty Dumpty an idiot in a fucking job. It's ridiculous.
Appreciate your support, Alex, but I will say I have been keeping an eye on your channel. I'm a bit disappointed there's no Winks Sampdoria scout reports or updates or Winks updates at all. I'm just a little disappointed. It's kind of what I've been looking for. I do enjoy his post-match rants, but that's what I'm really looking for, Alex. But I appreciate your support, my man. The bottom Duda. Actually, just quickly, I forgot this. Kyle Vineyard, member for 2 months. KPV in the house. Everybody saying, gimme a ginger from Sweden. Number 21, his name is Kulusevski.
Stop singing it. It's making me sad, man. It's making me sad. We need him back so bad.
That's what he even says right here. He says, we need him back ASAP, Ben. He is a beast. Come on, you Spurs. Ben, just for Kyle here, the KPV. What's your favorite thing about Kulusevski? Just to tell him.
Favorite thing about Kulusevski? I love every single thing about that guy. He is an absolute talent. Love having him in our squad, and I just cannot wait till he's back. I mean, we can't get him back soon enough. I mean, it's actually unbelievable how he come into the team. And I know some people like to call him a Juventus reject, but he came straight into the team and straight away, he was that glue within the front three. We started strutting our stuff. I mean, he adds something that nobody else can add to this squad. And it pains me. It pains me that he's out for so long.
If there are enough letters on it, I mean, it'd be brilliant if you just got a number 21 kit and just wrote Juventus reject on the back. That would be a brilliant, kit, I think. Big up KPV, absolute legend. Really appreciate you sending that in as well. And I am keeping an eye on that, everybody. If you do want to send in those member super chats, feel free to do so. The bottom Duda here saying, I was worried to see a calm Conte after 2 consecutive defeats. But I saw glimpses of the real Conte in today's conference, and that excites me. Some people have been kind of alluding to the fact that he's quite calm, actually, at the moment here, lads, despite the pressure and the defeats. Anybody want to comment on that? Anybody that sort of kind of have something, maybe to say on how Conte is not really too flustered, I guess, by the looks of maybe the manner of the defeats and also the pressure that's maybe on him. Anybody kind of interested in this?
Yeah, I've got one thing to say, but if anyone else has something to say first, you can go first.
I just think he kind of foresaw what's going to happen with the state of the squad. I mean, he was saying at the beginning of the season,
he had a speech ready.
The squad isn't, where he wanted it to be, and that's just the facts of the matter. We don't have enough players of his quality that want to do his football, and we need the people upstairs, the Daniel Levy's, the Paraticis, to start bringing in the players that he needs on a consistent basis.
Sean, did you hear his words about, clubs in transition? And he sort of kind of laughed about that. I'm not sure if you caught his press conference yet, Sean.
What was the quote or specifics of it?
He spoke kind of about like clubs in transition. Dave, were you able to kind of catch the press conference and maybe what he said on that? He kind of had some interesting quotes. Well, I guess I'll answer it about him, dude. He had a very, very interesting sort of quote about maybe clubs that were, so to speak, in transition. And one of them was Man United and Chelsea is what the reporter asked. And he kind of immediately stopped him there. And he basically said, if Man United and Chelsea are in transition, then what does that make Tottenham Hotspur? Which was a very kind of interesting sort of kind of statement. And it also sort of spoke about how he mentioned that the reporter kind of replied back, Sean, and said, oh, well, they're new managers. They're getting used to things here. And he was like, well, I've only been here for 11 months. He says we've gone from whatever it was, place in the table from Conference League to Champions League. He says, basically alluding to, we're supposed to be in transition, essentially. So it's maybe true. With that sort of context, Sean, I mean, what would you say to that?
Listen, I genuinely, I hate to say it because it sounds like it's a defeatist or a loser mentality. But before I do, I just want to point out like that demanding excellence. I said this a million times as well. Demanding excellence from things that you have no control over doesn't make you a winner. Like demanding excellence. Yeah, but no, that's why anyone like specifically, but just like
I know, I'm only
having unreasonable expectations of people that you yourself, sitting in an armchair watching the game and telling, it doesn't make you right just because you demand. And I think that what Conte is probably doing is, trying to bring back a little dose of reality and trying to lower expectations a little bit and saying, like, if you want, I know everyone, wants us to do this, but in reality, they want this, they expect this because last season we probably overachieved. And I think we did overachieve a little bit. The quality of the squad. I would love to do a show with any of you guys where we just do like a stack rank, like a Premier League table based on the quality of the squads. And I think if you did that and you were honest and realistic about it, then you'd find that Tottenham don't have the fourth best squad in the Premier League, don't have the fifth or sixth best squad. We're probably like somewhere like seventh or eighth. And so because we overachieved so much last year, people now, not only do you want to at least hit the same levels, but you actually want to go on and do more. And I think that Conte is right to remind people in his own unique kind of press conference way, which I don't always understand. He's very emotional and kind of erratic. But I think what he's trying to get across is like, come on, guys! Like everybody needs to just relax and recognize that this is play the long game here and trust the process. But like you're putting you're trying to make us, you're forcing us with your expectations to run before we can walk. And some would even say that our squad's at a crawling pace right now. So I think everyone, and I agree with him on that basis. Everyone should just kind of calm down. And just trust in him, trust in the system, and hopefully, if the owners go and give him the money that he needs within reason, I don't want to jeopardize the future of Tottenham Hotspur. I don't want to do what Leeds did or Everton do or Villa. I don't want to do that stuff where we just go and print money because it satisfies unreasonable people in the fan base. I'd rather they do it in the right, sustainable manner. But they're surely, and I can't wait until November the 21st when the figures come out. I'm going to read through that with a fine tooth comb to really ascertain and understand exactly where we're at financially, following on from the pandemic, following on from the stadium rebuild, see where we are, and then say, okay, now we know, let's build at the right pace, but let's also, everyone needs to kind of pause and understand that there is a process in place here.
Yeah,
finance is like porn to you, Sean.
I love it. Yeah, I absolutely love it. Yeah, it's brilliant.
He does. Anytime something's coming up, you can see the excitement in him. He's bouncing up and down. He loves
spreadsheet, bottle of lube, box of
Kleenex and chill.
What I will say just quickly,
he also saying, Dave, he says, and Conte does not put, and Conte does that to put pressure on the board, not to put pressure on his players or throw him under the bus. And Sebas Wolf actually said something I thought I think would probably agree with what Sean was saying too, saying Conte is calm because he knows the squad is doing good for the quality of players he has. What do you make of the fact, Dave, that he is a bit calm at this moment?
I'll be honest. I just hope he hasn't lost his passion and he's just resigned to the shitness of some of the squad, to be honest with you. No matter what he does, what preparation, what formation, because we were talking about formations 3-4-3, 3-5-2. Reality is we've used them both. And I just hope he's not resigned already to like, it doesn't matter what I do, because unfortunately, if this guy just decides he'll start ballooning balls into the stand and putting them out for corner kicks and stuff like that, what more can I do when I've prepped everybody for this game? I didn't prep the team for that guy to start doing that and stuff like that. So I just hope it's not him maybe just being resigned to his fate, really, to be honest with you. I hope that's not the case. And look, he can't come out and throw his players under the bus. People say, why does he pick Dyer? Well, he's not going to turn around and go, oh, blank space, you can come on in here. He's got nobody else to pick.
Yeah.
He's not going to throw Dyer under the bus, because we've seen managers that tried to do it before, tried to come out and tell the truth. Nuno tried to split them into a B team. They all came out crying. Nuno or Jose Mourinho told them, you're not good enough. They came out crying. So why would he follow the same path of what people's done before and then they stop playing for him? He's not stupid. He's not going to do that. So when you see a manager back him up, he has to, because he has to rely on them until he can get better in here. It's that simple.
Yeah, he's actually done the opposite, Conte. He's told Dyer he can be a top quality, top world level centre back. He's told Davinson Sanchez he's got the qualities to be one of the best centre backs in the world, and this is how they repay them.
Do you feel like, though, he should maybe throw his players under the bus then a bit more than Ben? Do you feel like he could maybe put a bit more pressure on them? Because I mean, Tabata Duda sounded kind of saying he's deflecting from maybe putting pressure on the players and is instead just maybe putting more pressure on the board. Do you
if
feel
the players
like
can't handle it for
test
away game, if the players can't handle it for test away game, they're not going to handle criticism from Conte.
It's not the players that he should be throwing under the bus. It's the constant messages that he should be sending to the people that make the decisions to make the transfers, you know?
Sure.
These players have been here for so long. We don't have any options to take these players out of the team. So what is the point of throwing these players under the bus? I guess in a way he was trying to say that. Yeah. What's the point at the end of the day? You know what I mean? Like, if you throw Dyer under the bus, you can't bring anyone else in. It's just going to make his confidence levels low. And if you want his confidence levels to be lower than they actually already are, then he's never going to get better. And I don't think he's going to get better anyway. I mean, what we saw last season is probably like the maximum level that you're ever going to see from Eric Dyer. And it was okay, but we still need better. I mean, Antonio Conte, he's always sending messages. He's always saying the quality's not good enough. The quality's not good enough. So he doesn't need to bring up specific players in that. He's telling you for all to hear.
Yeah. I definitely feel that. Tyler Gritzula, Frimpong and Tapsoba taken from Leverkusen. Now take Tapsoba, brilliant on the ball defender, very, very tall and strong, which is what we're looking for as well. Pretty quick. Frimpong, he's almost kind of like a Tarek Lamptey is what I would say. Very small, very good sort of kind of wing back, maybe more as a winger. But it is kind of what we need. We actually do need a wing back that is good going forward. But Conte certainly has a bit of a height fascination is what I would say. Tyler. So maybe if Frimpong grew a couple inches, maybe he would actually take a look at him. Steve D says, given Dyer a contract, so can sell for more than £2. I mean, certainly Moon Boots' valuation on Transfermarkt was actually, I was actually just looking at it in dollars, not pounds, but it was actually at around $30 million was his evaluation according to Transfermarkt.
I checked it this morning, Jack. It was a pack of digestives and a bag of Barry's tea.
Just a quick refresh and things can happen quickly on Transfermarkt. Big up Steve D. Moondog, the quad is still on. Come on, you Spurs. And I think it's a tough conversation, Moondog, because we're talking about later the potential contract negotiation of your favorite Moon Boots and whether Dave actually will give that contract extension. I can probably spoil it for you. Doesn't look like he wants to. Big up Moondog. Appreciate your support as always.
Big up Moondog. Good to see you.
Then the Joracle's in the house as well as saying, fix all of the squad holes and one transfer / upgrade the chairman and all the rest will follow. Big up, boys. It certainly would be the transfer of the season. I mean, throw in a Bezos and then all of a sudden everything is solved. But Joracle, that is probably a touche of a transfer that I've ever seen one. But Dave, what do you make of Joracle's transfer decision? If he only gets one, he's just going to take the leader off the top.
Look, I just want to say to people, going into January, we're never going to get all the business done. We've just got to accept it's a difficult window to operate in, and clubs want to let their players move on if they don't find a replacement. So it's not necessarily about Spurs refusing to do business. Sometimes you can have things lined up, but it doesn't fall into place because others can't get their targets. So we're more so looking at the summer. We're looking at January like we did last season, getting 2 players in 2 key positions that can really make an improvement to the squad. But then in the summers where you're really looking for the final sort of upgrades is in Conte's plans, because come the summer, then you bring in another 3, 4, 5 players. The majority of the squad is Conte's. He can work with that. He can trust the players he's bringing off the bench. He can trust the players he's starting on the pitch. And look, I said this last night, and I know it may not be popular, but I'm going to say it again. What I will say is that if you improve that backline, I think Tottenham will actually go on and look like a very, very solid team. And in fact, I think we'll do so well, I think it might take a bit of the attention off the owners, to be honest with you, because the whole problem is people just want Tottenham to do well. People want Tottenham to deliver trophies. You give Conte a good squad, his management will deliver the trophies, and then it'll take the pressure off the owners.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
agree with that. I agree with that, Dave. I think that if you do sprinkle a bit of quality around this squad in the centre-back positions, in the wing-back positions, you're going to see a completely different team week in, week out. You really will.
Yeah, I agree with 100%. You, Ben. I think a lot of Conte's problems are actually alleviated by just not even like world-class quality inserted anywhere, just much better quality in certain positions. And I think that is the case with center backs, especially ball-playing center backs, because we've now seen it where pretty much every manager under the sun now has pretty much just said, if Dyer and Sanchez are playing, just put pressure on the center backs. They will crumble and they will give the ball away quite easily to you. It feels like the one player that you wouldn't say that about this season has actually been Longley. It feels like anytime they put pressure on him, he has kind of a nice ball that can maybe be played over the top to the likes of Sonny or Kane. He puts a nice bit of height on it, maybe kind of almost similar to the days of Jan and Toby and whatnot. And then also as well, I think his sort of composure under pressure is so much better than the rest of the center backs. And it feels like he is one of those guys that might punish you if you actually put him under a bit of pressure, where I can't say the same with the rest of the center backs. I can't say that with Moon Boots. I can't say that with Sanchez. Even Romero this season, we all know has not been as great as we know he can be, but he's also still, I think we all know, much better than the rest in possession. What we really just need is just players that can maybe take away that sort of tactic from teams that find it just quite easy to put pressure on us and then just kind of keep us pinned in our half.
Yeah, I mean, back on the Romero thing though, like he was rushed back from injury just because of the quality in the squad. That's why he hasn't been playing as well as maybe he could have done. And I think that just before this injury and before the Man United game, I thought he had his 3 best games of the season and he was looking back to his old self, and then he got that injury again, which was frustrating. But I do think it's due to injury and rushing him back why he hasn't been as good as last season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For me, it's really only if could we get away with just one decent center back coming into the team? I don't think so. I think we need at least 2 upgrades this window. But I'm kind of in the case of Sean here, where
it's not, because regardless, you're going to get injuries and suspensions, and then the same old players are going to come in. And before, the excuse for these guys used to be, oh, well, they need a run of games. But then when you've proven you give them a run of games, they can still make the same mistakes. It will keep happening as long as these guys are here. They're just not funded. They can't do the basics good enough of what's required of them in the position, and they don't have the mentality. And we just have to accept that. Just have to accept it. Look, they may be good human beings and everything else, and I'll commend them for that, no problem. But unfortunately, they just don't have the mentality or can execute the basics on a consistent enough basis to play for a club like Tottenham if we want to go and win trophies. Some of these players are scared of trophies. They were top of the league under Jose and crumbled. They got to a Carabao Cup final. It depends the expectations and what you're trying to achieve, you know. If people thought expectation coming into this season was winning the league, they are seriously deluded. You should always have that expectation though, Ben. You should always go into the season believing you can achieve the highest possible.
Well, you've got to be realistic.
This is why I've been asking on various channels and getting, certain reactions. How much money do you think it will cost to be able to compete with Manchester City? Reasonable, sincere, genuine question, because I genuinely think that if you want to win the league, you have to overcome Manchester City. If you want to win even the Carabao Cup, you have to overcome Manchester City or a team that has overcome Manchester City. And so when people say, oh, it's 22 years since we last won it, or 1 trophy in 22 years. The ownership is a disgrace. Everything comes back to Levy, all that crap. I want to say, you're viewing things through like a microcosm and a microscope that only looks at Tottenham Hotspur and compares. Someone said, mate.
Sorry. Go on. Yeah, sorry. Go on. My bad.
The last thing I'll say is I just think that if you want to be reasonable, if you want to have a cogent argument regarding the gap in trophies and the reality of how difficult it is to win trophies, you have to also analyze the fact that it's not just about Tottenham Hotspur. Everybody else all the variables are also moving, improving, or regressing, right?
Wow.
And Manchester United this season are a far better team. Chelsea are going in flux, and we don't know what sort of Chelsea's emerging right now. It's one week they look good, the next week they look terrible. Manchester City are a phenomenal outfit. They went from a 9.2 out of 10, in my opinion, to a 9.7 out of 10. And then you've got Liverpool. We don't know what's happening there. They look like they're regressing, but Arsenal suddenly have taken their spot. So for me, I think it's harder than ever to win a trophy. And just because Tottenham haven't won a trophy or more than one trophy in 22 years, people throw their toys out of the pram. With respect to them, I understand and appreciate their frustrations. I've got no problem with people hating on Daniel Levy. It's fine. But for me, the reason I take the stance that I do is because I think that you have to also factor in how the consequences of all the other variables. And for me, it has never been harder than it is right now for Tottenham Hotspur to win a trophy.
I definitely
just because it's been 22 years doesn't mean we deserve
that,
one. We're not entitled to something.
It's not all about.
Also, what you've got to remember as well is that when Spurs were winning trophies, there wasn't oil money in the game, and everyone was on a level playing field. Now, since Chelsea has come, since Man City have come, since Newcastle are about to come, that's when our trophy drought has started, because there's too much money in the game and we haven't been able to keep up.
But here's the thing, though. You can have a lot of money and you can still spend it wrong. It all comes down to the level of recruitment. Leicester City won a league title off little to next to nothing because their recruitment was spot on. They bought players who had the technical ability to be bought them cheap. Liverpool won a league over Man City. They don't have oil money. Yes, they have decent money, but their recruitment was correct. Yeah, but their recruitment was correct, though. This is the thing. Yeah. If you sign the right players, look, money helps the situation. Of course,
smart money, not a lot of money.
Obviously, the more money you can spend on a player, 9 times out of 10, the better quality of player you're getting. But it all comes down to smart recruitment. Where we failed over the last few years is Steve Hitchens' recruitment. It was nowhere near good enough.
Money pissed
Ben,
away.
you've done tier list on it. We've done a tier list on it and stuff like that. And it was nowhere near good enough. You get the right recruitment team in place and you give them the amount of money that we spent on players the last few years, and they bring in the right players, you will see a much better product on the pitch. Recruitment is absolutely key, especially if you don't have the oil money that some of these clubs. That's where recruitment becomes even more of a focus. You get that right, you always give yourself a chance. It's about building a team, and that all comes down to recruitment.
I agree, Dave. And it's not really, blank checks or only take you so far, because you can still be just spending it improperly. You can still be wasting it. And we had that with the case of Itchen. You still have to look at all the money he wasted. And you think about all the money that he wasted, most of that gets totaled up to pretty much a brand new center back and a brand new right wing back when you really look at it. And you could probably afford even a Hakimi with how much he's probably wasted down the drain. Ben, I'm not sure where you are on time, but I did want to maybe ask you again, maybe before we kind of start wrapping things up, where you were maybe saying center back is the position that you wanted to upgrade on this January. John Stokes, who we love on this channel, said center back and a goalkeeper. I know you have been defending Hugo valiantly for the Spurs community. Where do you stand on Hugo right now? And what would you say to John Stokes, who thinks that we do need to maybe look at a goalkeeper this January? He's kind of starting to feel like it's become a bit untenable maybe.
Look, I still think Hugo Lloris is a good keeper. He's obviously declining. That's clear for everyone to see. He's made a number of high-profile errors this season, but he's also saved us in games this season. I know we lost the game against Man United 2-0, but if it wasn't for him, we probably would have lost 7-0 that day. I think with Hugo Lloris, we need to start thinking about his successor, and I think we already have started thinking about his successor, but I think that we need to upgrade a few more positions before Lloris, and I wouldn't look at the goalkeeper in January, but I definitely would look at it in the summer, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm. And is there maybe a goalkeeper in mind right now that you feel like fits that sort of modern goalkeeper bill for you? Maybe somebody that's caught your eye? The two in the Premier League, I would keep my eye on, Meslier and Henderson.
Oblak.
I like those two. Oblak is a difficult one. I mean, he's had a poor year. Oblak. I think he's even
not really the best with his feet either, I would say.
Yeah, I'm not sure about Oblak because I think he's dropped off quite some bit since he was at the top of his game. But those two, I mean, why not go take a look at your guy, Dave Bazunu?
I wish we did.
I was waiting to see if anybody else would say it. I didn't want to be the only one saying his name, so thank you, Ben. Yeah, we should. honestly, I've said this about the guy, shot stopping ability of Hugo Lloris and Manuel Neuer, but also as the distribution of Manuel Neuer and Ederson. He's absolutely quality, this kid. The only thing is, City do
Ireland
have a
coming
guy
for
back
the World Cup then, yeah. Ireland coming for the World Cup.
I wish we were there. First of all, I feel left out. You know, Jack, you guys, Brian Daigle, you're all going to be there with your countries, or Brian Daigle with Canada, or Cody Mack, or whatever. I'm just sitting here left on my own, on the outside, on my own island. It's not nice.
You must have a little bit of English in you somewhere, Dave. I've got a lot of Irish in me.
Yeah, my man's English. My man's
English. Then you're fine then. Just fucking get on board the English team. Come on. You got something.
Nah.
And Ben, any sort of FPL kind of updates on Dave's fantasy team that we should be looking forward to on the channel, or any roasts of Dave we should look forward to?
Yes.
The only FPL update that you need is that this guy, he gets battered everywhere he goes, butlered everywhere he goes. He's still top of the pops. Number one.
Sean,
the guy for everyone to chase after.
Sean in our FPL group is just a bit like Arsenal, you know, at the top of the league now, but everyone knows they're going to drop. Everyone knows it.
He doesn't have the composure, Ben. He doesn't have the composure.
Have you got Arsenal players in your team?
He's going to start dropping Holland. He's going to start making crazy
No,
decisions. He'll get
Arsenal
nervous.
players.
Right,
you know what? I'm second in my own group, and I'm second in a bunch of other leagues as well. And the people that are above me all have got like Saliba and Jesus and Martinelli, etc. And I'm like,
It should be bad.
look, but the problem, I didn't agree with the rule in the first place on Ben's channel, because it means that if you're competing in 5-6 different leagues, you're scupping in the other 5 leagues. You know.
To be honest, Sean, I said it as a joke to start off with, and then everyone kind of just followed on. So I was like, all right, fine, I'm sticking to this now. But no, it currently in this chat right now, on this stream, we've got the top of the league and the bottom of the league.
I'm a bottom, yeah.
Balanced panel. Who didn't say it was a balanced panel?
Well, I still have Virgil van Dijk as triple captain, I believe.
Dave, how many times do I have to tell you? You can only pick triple captain once in a season.
Yeah,
Brilliant,
well,
Dave. I thought you were competitive, mate. I thought you would have figured it out. I thought you would have gone after this.
Sean, there's a method to my madness. Just sit back, relax.
Oh, you're playing the long game. You're playing the long game.
Let me read you out. I've actually got his team in front of me. He's got Ederson in goal, fair enough. Van Dijk as captain. Neco Williams starting week in, week out, which fair enough. He got a clean sheet this week, but first one of the season. Guehi in defence. Son, De Bruyne, fair enough. Jack Colback starting week in, week out. He's injured, by the way. Thiago Alcantara, who didn't play this week, and he's only getting 1 or 2 points every week. He's got Kane and Haaland up top, which is fair enough. And you've got some guy called Greenwood who plays for Leeds, who's played like 2 games all season.
I just needed to fill a void. I only had like 2.5 million left, and it's all I could afford.
And Bazunu on the bench, obviously.
Unbelievable.
No, do you know what my plan is? I want to be last going into Christmas, and then I'm going to knuckle down on Boxing Day. I'm going to get out a Whopper team, and then all of a sudden I'm going to come to the top. See, the method behind my madness and be like, it's about greatness. It's like, how can you crumble from the bottom to the very top? And that's what I'm going to do.
You're 200 points behind Sean.
Rise from the ashes.
Sean, I'm coming.
Rise from the ashes. But Ben, appreciate you coming on, and I wish you luck on your date with the Champions League, my man.
Thank you very much, guys.
Cheers, Ben.
All right.
Benji,
Gotcha, Ben.
thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. And I'll see
you later soon.
You're not in studio tomorrow. You're at the game, are you?
Yeah, I'm 100% at the game. I'll be holding up my bag tomorrow, so looking forward to it.
Have you got any tickets, Ben, that I can say I'm in for, then say I'm not in for, then ask you later if I'm still in for, and then maybe pull out last minute?
I might have to stop offering you tickets, Sean. Seriously, you need to accept one. Just accept one once.
I'm a hermit, man. I don't leave my house if I can avoid it. You know, it is what it is.
Fair enough.
All righty, Ben. Catch you soon, brother.
See you, Benji. Thank you, sir. Come on, you Spurs.
Can we carry on? Can we carry on, boys?
Yeah, we got it. We still have a question that I know Dave needs to answer here, everybody, and it is a good one, and it certainly has to do with his favorite. And Dave, I might just get kind of straight into it. There is a bit of rumors of Moon Boots potentially signing a contract extension here, Dave. And Ben Davies has already signed a contract extension at the club. I might just go straight into it, Dave, here. Is there maybe a culture at Spurs where maybe we're awarding contracts for maybe not really a whole lot done? Perhaps these contracts aren't a lot deserved. Are we maybe finding ourselves in perhaps a Harry Winks situation where we're kind of just awarding players new contracts for not really doing a whole lot in the first place.
Yeah, I describe it as a bit of a teacher's pet situation, Jack. The best boy in class, the guy that's hand is up, waving around, please pick me, pick me, pick me. I mean, and the reason why I describe it like that, Jack, was purely because Harry Winks got contract after contract after contract. For what? Delivering on the pitch against Real Madrid in one game. Ben Davies, Eric Dyer have been allowed to stay here for so long. Dele Alli was allowed to stay here for 3 years without performing, being rewarded with new contracts. And this culture has to stop. And I know why it's happening is because they're happy to be back up and they don't kick up a fuss. But the reason why they don't kick up a fuss and they're happy and they were happy to play back up until the last couple of seasons is purely because they know themselves they're not good enough to be here. And what will happen is they'll leave Tottenham, they'll go to another club and their wages and their income will decrease because their true quality will be showing up. So now, of course, they're going to be good little boys around here and do everything they're told. And that's why they've been rewarded new contracts. And for me, it's got to stop. You've got to give them contracts on merit. You've got to. It's that simple. You've got to give them contracts on what they produce on the pitch. And this is where I do maybe blame the owners, because you can't tell me Jose Mourinho wanted to hand some of these a new contract. You can't tell me Conte wants to hand Dyer a new contract, in my opinion, because he
did with Davies. He was very happy with Davies for the contract renewal.
I disagree. I mean, they've got new contracts.
He said he was, though.
But these managers have to say this, Sean. They have to say this. He's not going to say, oh, well, I don't want Ben Davies to get a new contract, because then he's left in a position where it's him or Ben Davies.
Okay, but you're speculating.
Do you think then they overstep Conte and just give him a new contract without telling Conte at all?
Of course they will. Of course they will. They're doing it with so many players at this football club, and this is where I do put the blame on them. They know what they're doing. They're doing it because these guys are happy to be around here and don't kick up a fuss. But you should be rewarding them for what they're doing on the football pitch. And if you take what they've done on the football pitch, they would have been gone out of here 5-6 years ago.
Yeah, but there's another reason why these contracts happen, mate. Right? It's and I know this might be boring, but it makes it's prudent financial sense to do it. Okay, for two reasons. One is you're protecting the asset, right? And the other is, well, but like if for example, I don't know the details of Eric Dyer's contract, but let's say he's earning 100 grand a week for argument's sake. And let's say that his contract runs out at the end of 2024. His
contract runs out on July 1st, 2024. So technically not.
Yeah, perfect. Right. Yeah, so 2024.
A year and a half.
So two reasons why you do that. One is he might not be a defender that is good enough to win us leagues, but he is a defender that has value in it. If you let that run down, then not only do you risk losing that asset for free, that you could sign him up for another 3-year extension and then put him on the market if someone's up there for it and try and get 10, 20,
then
30
you
million.
Agree that it's a club offering him a contract then.
Well, hang on. Let me just explain the reason, the rationale for it, right? And the second reason is that if you don't want Eric Dyer around next year, which most of us would like to see him at the very best, drop as a backup. If other clubs know that a starting centre back for you is running down their contract and that you haven't offered them a new one, or that the player isn't necessarily willing to sign one, then guess what happens when you try and pay when you go after Skriniar, De Vrij, when you go after a Bastoni, right? They're gonna put an extra 25% on because they know that Tottenham are desperate, because in the likely outcome is that the player leaves for free. So there's whether or not it's a club decision or a Conte decision, or whether or not I agree or disagree with you that Conte is saying that Ben Davies deserved his contract extension because
I'll put a bet on with you, Sean, on how I know it's not Conte. When Conte leaves this club, I guarantee you he doesn't come in and put in a bid for Ben Davies to bring him to his next club. Just like Jose Mourinho didn't when Dyer was getting new contracts, or Dele Alli was getting new contracts. Just like Pochettino didn't when Winks was getting all the new contracts.
Not doing that doesn't mean that you're right.
I don't think that automatically means that they don't. I mean,
of course
every manager doesn't take every player.
Of course it does, because if your whole theory is that they're delighted to hand them out new contracts, well then they move on. When they move on to next clubs, their first thought, if they're looking to improve a certain area, should be, I love Ben Davies, so I'll go and get him. But he's not going to.
But Jose Mourinho
never came back for half the players.
Well, he was.
You have to understand, despite they're not going to call out their squad. They're not going to call out.
I've got to call you out on that. That's a really bad assumption, right? Because first and foremost, you don't know what the manager's next job is and whether or not those players are necessary. Second of all, you don't know the financial circumstances. Third of all, you don't know what the players' circumstances are. And fourth of all, you just mentioned Jose Mourinho, and none of us know the intricacies of whether rumors are real or based in fact or just based in journalists making things up. But in the summer, there was a whole bunch of rumors that Japhet Tanganga was going to go to Roma. And Ndombele as well. It didn't happen. We don't know whether that was fake, made up, or whatever. But to say that
it proves my point.
It doesn't prove your point.
It does, even if Conte sits there and says he's happy about Ben Davies signing a new contract. Again, it's
so the only way the only way that's proven to be true is wherever Conte goes next. If he tries to buy half a dozen players from Tottenham.
Well, the players that have been awarded new contracts underneath him, if he doesn't come back for them, he didn't want them in the first place.
Jose Mourinho hasn't come in for Heung-min Son. Sonny signed a contract in the last 3 years, right? Does that mean that Mourinho had no faith in Sonny?
If Son was available, would he take Son? If Son was available,
there's no linker there. So I'm saying what my point is that you're making a massive assumption. Sonny signed a new contract after Jose Mourinho left or during that kind of transition period. If what you're saying about Conte leaving and taking Eric Dyer with him is true, then why didn't Roma put in a bid for Sonny? It's not.
Can I ask a question though, Sean?
Son's not available. Son's not available. If Son was available, Jose Mourinho would take him. If some of our defenders were available, he wouldn't take them. It's that simple. Look, the thing is, some of these guys have been handed contracts all throughout, and we keep saying the managers are happy to give them new contracts, but yet then the managers are falling on their swords every single time. So how can we sit here and say that the managers are happy to give them contracts when they're the ones that they have to rely on in the back line, and they're ultimately the ones that have cost them their jobs?
But how do you know? How do you know how Conte feels? Just because you and I and
how do you know how he feels?
I don't. I'm saying we don't know. So you're making assumptions. I'm calling.
We don't know whether he said vehemently no, and we don't know whether he said yes.
I'm making an assumptions from Conte being a winner and the trophies he has in his cabinets, and him knowing what a top quality player is. And I guarantee you, if he leaves and he won't go somewhere else, and he needs defenders, he will not come back for any of these guys, even though they would be available if someone put.
But here's how I think I see it, Dave. Maybe let's say it happens this way, where Levy, or probably it is Levy ultimately, that decides to extend maybe the contracts of the players. They go to Conte, hey, we're thinking about and probably going to go ahead with extending Dyer's contract. What's your thoughts on it? Unless he vehemently says no and is like very much against it, I think he might just nod his head and sort of just go along with it. Whether he actually really wants it or not is probably up for debate still. Absolutely. But I think he does find himself in a position where he just thinks, am I going to really step out of my way here and just say no to Eric Dyer getting this? Am I going to make a big scene about it? Perhaps, maybe not.
I don't see what difference
that's where it might happen.
First and foremost, I don't see what difference it makes. You sign a new contract. It doesn't mean you can't be sold 6 months later. There's been like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of examples of players that sign new contracts and then get sold anyway, right? Erling Haaland was one of them, for example. Josko Gvardiol is going to be one of them. There's a million examples. There's a million examples of clubs that secure themselves financially and the player with various contract, and clauses, etc., so that they can then move on and then protect themselves from the vultures.
It doesn't necessarily protect the asset because we still haven't sold Harry Winks and we've delivered him contract after contract.
And that's a different.
Or you want to send it back early,
and that's a fair point. It's a different argument, though, right? It's not.
That's not an assumption either. That's fact.
No, and it's a valid point, but I'm saying that's a different argument. The argument of whether or not it makes prudent financial sense to protect the asset in its initial circumstance is different to whether or not the outcome of them protecting that asset.
I can understand protecting the asset. I fully understand that.
And that's what I think it is. The second thing I'd say is, like, when you make the assumption about certain, like Conte not loving certain players that we don't love, like how could he love Eric Dyer? We don't love Eric Dyer. Dave, I've heard you say 1,000 times. Me and you have laughed 100 times on this stream and on my channel about Conte's love of Emerson. Conte loves Emerson far more than any Tottenham fan.
But does Emerson cost us as many games as some of them other players have this season?
Yeah.
No, he hasn't.
Hang on 1 second.
God, the simple fact is Emerson hasn't cost us games like Dyer has cost us. He hasn't cost us games like some of the other players have cost us, and it's that simple.
Well, but making mistakes defensively, or like, and going back to Hugo Lloris, everyone is absolutely hating on and stinking on Hugo Lloris right now because, in the last month he's made or since the Arsenal. In fact, for a while now in key games. But when a goalkeeper makes a mistake, it usually costs the team a goal and sometimes 3 points. And it certainly it completely changes and transitions the game from a 0-0 or a 1-1 to a position where you're losing, and then everything changes. You have to come back out more. You're more vulnerable to counterattacks. So when a goalkeeper makes a mistake or when a defender makes a crucial mistake, it costs you a lot more than when Harry Kane doesn't take a chance. Perisic, for example, in the game against Newcastle, and Sessegnon, they had clear-cut chances to do better than what they did, and they just parried it. They just nonchalantly did nothing and just gave it to Nick Pope. Those mistakes, those shit show last chances are just chalked off as a shot on target but a mistake. Everyone's like, well, he didn't have a great game because of this. Eric Dyer makes a mistake, it's highlighted. Hugo Lloris makes a mistake, it's double highlighted. Everyone's calling for Hugo Lloris to be kicked out of Tottenham Hotspur. No one's calling for Sessegnon or Perisic to be abused into the same vein, because the consequences of making a mistake as outfield positions is different to when you're a defender or a goalkeeper.
Dyer's mistakes wouldn't be highlighted if he was good enough in centre midfield, where he actually was originally playing before he moved to centre back. So that's on him again for not being good enough to fill the midfield role. But second of all, Kane and Son and all got highlighted when we didn't score goals last season in games where it ended 0-0, like Brentford and stuff like that, right? But how many times do we draw blanks compared to how many times do we keep a clean sheet? The reason why the defence and that get highlighted a lot more is because they make a hell of a lot more mistakes, and it's that simple. And I get because of the position of the field they're in. But at the end of the day, we concede a lot more goals than that than we do draw blanks up the other end. And that's just simple. Plus, Kane and Son are so much better footballers than what we have in the back line.
Can I ask a question here for kind of both of you? And I want both of you to answer it. And it's using actually Jory's super chat here, in which he says, I'm actually going to ask this question. If Dyer does sign a new contract, and if he is given a new contract, will Spurs really go after players in the transfer market to truly challenge him? Will we actually go after a Bastoni? Would we actually go after a player that can truly challenge maybe Dyer's quality if we give him a contract this season? Or does that really not relate or really connect at all? And also Jory, in kind of connection to that, saying protecting asset value at the cost of silverware by way of squad quality. Sean, for you, if we give a contract to Dyer, do you fear maybe that means we might not actually really pursue a real center back to challenge him?
No, I don't agree. I love Joey to pieces, Jack. Big up to Joey. He's a very calm voice of reason. Great guy, lovely fella. And look, for me, just so you know where I'm coming from, guys, like me as a person, I'd just love to play the devil's advocate and get involved in this debate, right? I think that Eric Dyer, I'm not sitting here saying that Eric Dyer should be A, rewarded with a new contract, and B, he should be the mainstay centre back for years. I'm with everybody else that wants to see a better central centre back. I'm with the idea of getting rid of Emerson or improving on Emerson, improving on the left wing back, improving on the goal. I want us to have everything that everybody else wants. But for me, I just think that when people are making certain cases, I'm going to say here's the counter. And for me, the protecting of an asset is the rationale, whether you agree with it or not. But that is the rationale for giving players new contracts, because there is Eric Dyer has residual value in him. He might be 31, but he still has a £15 million, whatever, price tag in him. And so there is a rationale for giving him a new contract, whether or not you see him, or Daniel Levy or Paratici or Conte sees him as the future central centre-back of Tottenham Hotspur. The reason why his contract is up for renewal, and the reason why Tottenham would give it, in my opinion, is because of asset valuation protection. And that is a more than reasonable reason, in my opinion.
Can I ask you another question off the back? And look, I fully hear you when it comes to protecting the asset. I fully hear it. But because of where the squad has been at over the last few years, and because of how bad some of these players are in, and it's not necessarily true that we might be able to ship them on for money, because we've seen with Harry Winks' case, everybody said 20 million, no problem. But he's gone out on loan in Sampdoria because we couldn't sell him. And in fact, they're begging us to take him back. Yep. So it's not necessarily. So with where we're at as a squad, and everyone knows where I feel we're at if you've watched my video the other day, is it a case where right now you've got to be smart and pick and choose what assets you're protecting. It's simply because we do need to get some of these guys out of the squad. And then because of the quality of them. I know some Spurs fans may believe in their quality, but the reality is there's clubs out there that look at them and say, ain't touching him with a badge pull. Or with a badge pull. So is it more of a case where we have to be smart with the assets we're actually protecting? And some of them you just have to say, look, not good enough. A bit like, look, I'm not asking us to be drastic like we did with Serge Aurier, but we had no problem ripping up his contract. So unfortunately, I financially, there's still bits of that situation where we're still at. Some of these guys just shouldn't be rewarded, and you just have to let them go.
So you're in this position then, Dave, that Dyer just sees out his contract until 2024, essentially, but where maybe Sean lies is if we do make that decision, will Dyer really give his all for the rest of the club for the rest of the seasons? We're not sure. And then also, is that really the best financial decision for Spurs? I'm not also sure either. But then again, what I do want to ask though, Dave, is a follow-up for you here. If we give contract to Dyer, does that play any role in how Spurs go for a center back in the January window / the summer? Let's say they give him a new contract. Does that mean no Bastoni, perhaps something a little worse than a Bastoni? Does that play any sort of influence on the new center back that we all know they need to go after? And we all said this earlier, that they need to get an upgrade in the center back position, specifically Dyer's position, where there is no competition whatsoever. Does this new contract influence that at all?
No, I still think we'll look to bring one in here. I mean, if we don't, it'll be absolutely mind-boggling.
Because maybe that's the new signing is the contract.
It might stop us going again in the market to bring someone else in after the first guy sells, to bring in another backup. That's where it might hinder us, to be honest with you. But Shawnee, what's your thoughts?
Well, look, just what I would say, right? You know, in the interest of balance, I 100% agree with you that people like Harry Winks are an example. People like, Ndombele. For me, when you have players on long contracts that you can't shift, there is a consequence of the time cost, right? There's an opportunity cost. I think part of the problem this summer, and I think it will be exactly the same in January, or maybe not in January, but in next summer, I think the same thing will happen again, is that Paratici and his crew are going to have so much of their time allocated trying to shift players that have been on loan for 2 seasons. Lo Celso, Ndombele, Harry Winks, those sorts of guys that are out there, maybe Brian Hill, like this constant attempt to try and find a buyer, can't find one, have to deal with the consequences of negotiating with teams that know they're aware that you need to do your business, and that it's not just like a simple shake of the hands. Like these are smart people around the world in football teams that go, let's go after Tottenham Hotspur, let's lowball them because they have so many other things to happen. So I'm not sitting here saying that this idea of protecting the asset necessarily always works. Down the line is a consequence, right? And if they protect the asset and re-extend Eric Dyer for 3 years, but then Tottenham suddenly find a pathway to giant success and Eric Dyer is surplus to requirements, then getting him off the books, may prove to be difficult. And maybe you'll look back and say we should just let the whole contract kind of run down. I'm not saying it's a perfect science. I'm just saying it makes sense to me financially to look at a guy who's 31, who's an England international,
he's 29 actually. He's younger than that.
Right, he's an England international. He wants to go to the World Cup. There's a rationale
to protect the World Cup.
Well,
if he does, going out already.
Okay, but he might not play, but he might go. But either way, right? But my point is,
I think he's on the plane.
He's on the cusp, right? He's on the cusp. And so therefore, there are teams in the Premier League, there's teams around Europe that would love him. Portugal, he speaks Portuguese, he speaks Spanish. There's lots of teams that would look at him and say, we haven't got the same expectations or the same dreams of Tottenham Hotspur. There's value there. To me, it makes sense. Does it always work out in a perfect world? No, of course it doesn't. But I understand the rationale for it. And I would rather us sign him without give him whatever it is, it'll be the same contract. It will just be an extension, same wages, but just lock him down for a few more years, and then you kick that can down the road. Does it always work? No, we've got the same problems with Ndombele and Lo Celso and a few other players. But for me, it makes sense. And to say that him being given a new contract is some by definition and an expectation that we're lowering our levels and we're just tolerating mediocrity, I don't agree with that assumption at all.
I agree with it to a certain extent. I fully take your argument about protecting the asset, but this has been the problem. They protected the asset, sacked Jose Mourinho. They protected the asset, sacked Nuno. Protected the asset, sacked Pochettino. And now they're protecting the
Protecting the wrong asset.
They're protecting
Okay.
the asset again after
Let me flip it then, Dave. What would you rather happen?
I'd rather just let his contract run down and let him go. I don't think he's anywhere near good enough to be here. And I think ultimately he'll suffer the same fate as Harry Winks, where people think there's value in it, there's money in there. Harry Winks is half Spanish, he can speak Spanish. People would have said the same about him. Well, maybe a Spanish club will take him.
So you think that Eric Dyer should go, like, Eric Dyer is worthless to Tottenham Hotspur, is what you're saying?
Yeah, in my opinion. I think he is worthless. I think he's far too costly. I think he's been far too costly over the years. In fact, I think if we would have upgraded on him over the years, would have upgraded on Davies over the years, and would have upgraded on some of the others, I don't think we'll be sitting here in this predicament right now, if I'm being brutally honest.
If we brought in 2 center backs in, let's say we brought in one in January and one in the summer, Dave, and we do give Dyer a contract extension, could basically Dyer take that auxiliary Sanchez role? And maybe that's the reason they're kind of giving him that contract, is sort of to keep him around. He's also been here 9 years already. There might actually be a bit of sentimentality actually behind this, that they know they might want to keep somebody around the club that's been here a very, very long time, and someone who obviously knows the club inside and out. I agree with you. This shouldn't be the case, that he's one of these players that has been here 9, 10 plus years. But perhaps that's where they're seeing it, is like, he's already on 9 years. We're going to be bringing in much better players into this club that are going to be young and talented. Perhaps what we want is sort of like and this might be kind of stupid to say, but almost like a Mark Noble-like character maybe in the club, or somebody that's been there kind of like a while and like knows, like kind of been through all the years of the club. But the problem with Dyer is that, what is he really going to teach these guys? I'm not really sure. And what like sort of influence is he going to have on them, apart from really showing them where the restroom is and maybe where the nearest weights are? I'm not sure. Maybe the logic I see is just a bit of sentimentality,
Do you also acknowledge, Jack, that there's a value in homegrown, right? There's a value in
and I think they're trying to protect that as well. They're trying.
He counts for that now.
Only a few weeks ago, people were saying that he didn't.
No, he does count. He counts as homegrown now. Okay. Not in the Champions League, but in the Premier League, right? Yeah. There's a value in that. That's worth 5 million to some other club, right?
But we said all this about Harry Winks, though, Sean. All the things you're saying now, and I'm not saying you necessarily, but I've heard it all with Harry Winks.
Isn't Moon Boots better than Harry Winks? Like, isn't he ultimately
much
better than Harry Winks?
We fell into this part with Harry Winks. We all said there's a player in there, this, that, and the other. And guess what? We got told this transfer window that apparently outside of the Spurs community, many people don't think so.
Look, we're third in the league with
more points than what he's actually gained us.
Dave, we're third in the league. We're top of our Champions League group. We qualified for the Champions League last year, playing this guy in the last 60 games for Tottenham Hotspur. Like, he can't be. He's got a mistake in him. God knows he's got a mistake in him, right? And he's low on confidence. But
you think he's good enough to deliver trophies?
No, but he's not worthless. Okay. He's not worthless. And what
you said this about Harry Winks. This is my point. I get what you're saying. I fully get what you're saying in terms of a financial perspective, maybe, and whatever else you're saying.
And that's so important. That's so important. Like, people, I feel like people.
Sean, I'm not saying it's not. You know, I agree with you when it comes to finances and how important they can be. You know that. But what my point is I'm looking at it on a football basis. And right now, that's what everyone's pissed off with. And for me, there's no point in persisting with the same common denominator who's been here under numerous managers. Now, my question is, if we spent more on that back line over the last few years and they haven't found themselves in the team because of default and actually on merit, I can understand that and I can sit here and say, okay, there's value in it. But because they find themselves in the team, and because of default and not enough money spent in them areas and not actually on merit, I can't sit here and say that, because I've learned my lessons, or we've learned our lessons with some previous players before that. We said there was value in Dele Alli. We let him go for free. We said there was value in Reguilon. We ended up having to loan him out. We said there was value in Ndombele, Lo Celso, Harry Winks. They've all been loaned out. My point is outside the Spurs community, God knows we adore and love our players. But we also have to understand that sometimes, because of our love and our passion for the club and stuff, it can be blinkered. And you have to understand that maybe outside of Tottenham, People don't see value in what we have here.
I get it.
If they did, people would have came in and put in offers for these people long ago.
All right.
Yeah.
We haven't got.
One second. There would have been
Sorry.
rumors circulating in the papers for moves for these guys, but there has been for Kane, there has been for Son, and there has been for other players. Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, there was rumors for him from Real Madrid, but there hasn't been for this guys, and that tells me what I need to know, in my opinion. I may be wrong.
That's fine.
No
That's,
problem.
I hear you. Just sorry, Jack. Just let me. Jack, I'll come to you for my question. Then it's a question rather than a statement. If that's okay, Jack. I really want to.
No. Go on. No,
I was gonna.
If Eric Dyer and Sanchez had, who do you think has more value in them to Tottenham Hotspur? Because in my mind, you can't go and buy 2 or 3 centre backs of 50 million quid value or higher, right? With all the other gaps that we've got to fill. So you're playing like mental arithmetic. Well, you know, where do I get the money to pay? I'm robbing Peter to pay Paul. I've got to find some money for. If you want Eric Dyer gone, then that means you not only have to, and you hate Sanchez, as I know you hate Sanchez, Dave, and Jack, I don't know what your first, I'm pretty sure you don't like him either, then you would have to go and find a replacement for Dyer and Sanchez if you want to let Dyer go for free. Right, but then
where I see, but
money doesn't go on trees, you know. So like, I feel like for me,
I would like to speak, Dave. I would just like to speak.
Sorry, Jack.
I think I'm going to sort of kind of maybe also summarize for both of you here to maybe sort of kind of reach some sort of conclusion here on this, is where Dave sees it is that this is an asset that isn't really worth preserving because it ultimately he doesn't think is actually worth that much to the greater football world. Like, you know, whichever club in the Serie A or even in Portugal doesn't really rate Dyer ultimately that high. So no matter how long we think we can keep him around, he's not actually going to really get us that much money in the end. And I think he probably feels the same way where with Sanchez. Whereas you, Sean, you seem to think that it is actually maybe a huge misrepresentation of Dyer's value. There is some value there that other clubs will see in the future. And it's kind of a bit silly just to waste that away and just to let him kind of just essentially go on a free, and we don't get to take advantage of that. And we don't want to do the same thing with probably someone like a Sanchez either. And I think where Dave sees it is somebody who has basically been at this club for years and years and years and years. Is there really like actually any evaluation there? Do we find ourselves in the Wink situation where he's actually just kind of just sat around at the same club for nearly 10 years? Like what is actually the rating of him according to other clubs? Do actually other clubs even have a value of Eric Dyer? Because it was a similar situation with Winks, where Winks had a pretty high valuation according to Transfermarkt, and then it really, you know, according to, or at least what we saw in the summer, really was none whatsoever. I would test though against Dave and say that I think Dyer actually does ultimately have, I think, some value more than Winks does. I do see Dyer going to another Premier League team. I could see him making almost like a Connor Cody kind of move, like to the likes of an Everton or something like that, or like what James Tarkowski did kind of at Burnley. I see an Eric Dyer making a move like that, Shawnee. And if we would probably stand to maybe benefit from that instead of letting that maybe happen on a free. But what Dave's, I think, is how he's feeling is, how much is that really worth to us? Like, does that really matter? And ultimately, Eric Dyer, his football has been so poor on the pitch. Does he even deserve it in the first place?
Jack, let me just rebuttal Jack quickly. Jack, do you think, would you rather Eric Dyer be back up to whoever, De Vrij, Skriniar, some target we're going after, Bonucci, whatever, right? Would you rather have Eric Dyer on the bench or Sanchez on the bench?
I'd rather have Eric Dyer on the bench.
So would I. Jack, Dave, who would you have?
None. And the reason why is I'm just simply going on. They formed a key part of Jose Mourinho's backline. The problem under Jose wasn't scoring goals, it was keeping it out. Same under Poch when he got sacked. The problem wasn't scoring goals, it was keeping them out. Same under, Nuno, it became both. But under Conte right now, like the problem is we keep shipping too many goals. And also last season, if we're being brutally honest, we won a lot of our games, but ultimately we had to rely on a favour from Newcastle in the last couple of games. That defence, if we didn't get Champions League football, everybody would have been talking about the defence this summer. But we got blinkered because we ended up getting it. And I sat there all summer telling people that this was going to happen. People said, no, Dave, you're being harsh. And guess what? I'm sitting here today vindicated from what my opinion was. And I'm also and I only use past experience when I was giving my opinion. I'm using past experience and all the assets that people told me were worth money, that people told me other managers come in here and get the better out of. They haven't been able to do it. They've ultimately haven't been able to sell them on, and we've ultimately haven't to loan them off. My opinion is coming off what we've seen in the past. And a lot of it is because our recruitment hasn't been good. We as Spurs fans, I keep saying this, we may see value in it, but the reality is the wider football world might not. And like, look, Dyer may go to a Premier League club, but ultimately might end up faring the same fate as Dele Alli, where, look, the mentality or whatever is not there. And look, I hate to say it, I see it going that way. For me, I think if we want real improvements, there's no point in keep on persisting, because even if you bring in one guy, they still have to come in as a backup. And if they come in for a couple of games and the team is doing well, they come and make a couple of mistakes. That's the difference between finishing second and first. And that cannot happen, in my opinion. And I'm just sick of the average mistakes that these, and Sanchez doesn't escape. On the ball, he's not good enough. He is not good enough. People talk about wanting to play progressive football, watch nice, attractive football. How can you do that when you don't know whether Sanchez's pass is going to make his man or not? But when you look at Langley, you feel confident that pass is going to make his man. But when all these other guys run the ball, you don't feel that. And if we don't feel that, that gets a knock-on effect to the players out on the football pitch. Of course they feel that. They feel that more.
You can't sell both of them. Like we've struggled to sell any player in the last 2 years. Apart from Bergwijn, we haven't sold a single bean. Everybody that we've had has been loaned out. We can't find a buyer. The financial crisis is going to get worse. I've been saying this for ages and ages and ages. I've told everybody on my channel that watches it, like, not only protect, like,
clubs will continue to not have a lot of money.
It's insane, right? Like the only league that has money to go around that just is defying logistics of economics is the Premier League. And so Eric Dyer, for me, has a lot of value, because there's a lot of teams that will need a homegrown player for the Premier League. So for me,
you said that about Winks.
Well, and that's not necessarily.
But I think we just
then,
but then, Dave, let's just settle that we have a different evaluation of Winks and Dyer. Like, I think Winks is just that poor that Winks. I think I said Winks would never get into a Premier League team. I will stand and say I think Eric Dyer could get into another Premier League.
Of course, we have a different valuation. That's why we're sitting here arguing about it for the last.
I know, but let's not repeat ourselves for the.
Been a good argument. Been a good argument.
I just want to take this comment in hold, though. Big up, Jory. But says, sorry, but I'm out of here. If you don't agree with Irish, he just goes into rant or sulks. Same old argument. Can't see anyone else's side. I mean, pretty sure the whole idea of a debate is not to, if you don't agree with someone, is to give your opinion. I'm pretty sure that's how you debate, unless you want me to sit here and just sit here and agree with opinion that you agree with personally that I don't. So you're basically saying to me, I can't share my opinion because you don't agree with it. False. Not going to happen. Never going to happen. Never going to silence me. And I'll always share my opinion, whether I agree with people or not. Now, Sean knows that I have no problem disagreeing with people, but I also have no problem sitting there and listening to people. I mean, I run 4 fan shows a week where people come on with opinions.
Oh, it's great. It's good. It's good. This is the best type of content.
People put opinions. People put opinions in the chat. I don't agree with them, but what I always encourage is, even though you don't agree, you can still get on and you can still listen to each other, which is what I feel I do. And plus, considering you're the only one that's put in that comment.
Dave, let me just say, Monjo's a regular in the comments in my show. Big up, Monjo. Like, I hope you're okay, my man. Listen,
no, he's a regular here, but I just don't agree with that comment. It's like, just because I don't agree with your opinion, which he agrees with, obviously, it doesn't make me out to be sulky or that. I mean, I'm allowed to express my opinion, or else it's not. No echo chambers, right? It's called a one-sided debate. Echo
chambers are boring. Like, I'm not going to get into it, but if you like. Anybody that wants to find one particular debate that or argument that they agree with and have 10 people all say the same thing over and over again, there's plenty of channels that do that. Having differences of opinion, for me, is the best form of content, and why I do this stuff. I like to have challenging debates. I love Dave. I love Jack. Sometimes they agree with me. Sometimes they don't. But for me, it's the best form of content is one where people don't agree.
Phil saying here, big up. Do you guys think we deserve to be third at this moment? I do not, says Phil. You look at the rest of the teams, though. I mean, they haven't done a whole lot right throughout the course of the season to really deserve to be in third either. Does any team really deserve to be in third is really the question, I think, Phil. I mean, Chelsea have only started maybe picking up points. Man United have only started picking up points. We all know Liverpool are sitting deep in 10th. Maybe Newcastle should be the team that's probably deserved to be in third, but they even dropped points at a certain stage. There was actually a period where Eddie Howe was drawing game after game after game, and he actually started to come under a tiny bit of pressure for actually drawing so many games in a row. So I don't know. I don't even know who deserves to be in third is what I would put it. I don't really think there is actually a lot of merit or credit in the bank right now, other than the scum and then the other blue scum up north in Manchester. I think they're
first
the only
and second
deserve their spot.
First and second deserve their places. Third to seventh, everyone is a mixed match right now. You know?
they're all just going to tear each other apart. Yeah, they don't really. Yeah, I agree with you there, Sean. A big up, Phil, and hopefully get you on the fan show. Rob Domino, Dyer, keep or sell. It's a win. He has played well. Out of form, he is a liability. With Sanchez, keep or sell. It's a loss. Dyer's not the hot topic here, though, lads, says Rob Domino.
I mean, it's like they didn't offer Ben Davies a new contract. They're offering Eric Dyer a new contract. So, of course, he's the hot topic. He's the one that they're offering the contract to. He's also the one that made mistakes against Newcastle. So how's he not the hot topic?
Yeah, I think Robbie is the reason we're discussing it is because he made the big
This
mistakes
is the thing,
against
though, Jack.
Newcastle.
I don't
He's being
pull
offered
these
a
things
contract.
out
Well,
of
they
thin
maybe
air.
didn't know that it was the case with being offered a contract in the week.
No, fair enough. But like, this is the thing. I'm not pulling these topics out of thin air. You know, these are the topics that are out there to talk about. I don't make them up.
Absolutely. Big up, Robin. What I would say is that I think Dyer, there is probably, I'm not even sure what Dyer's real actual transfer fee really is. I would say it's still probably ultimately less than 10 million. Is that worth keeping around? I'm not sure. Sanchez, I don't even know what his evaluation is. Perhaps he's worth something to somebody in La Liga, but anybody that's seen him play, I don't really know what he really is worth. But the reason he's the hot topic is just simply because of the mistakes he's made in the past games against Man United, Newcastle. Then also he's just being given the brand new contract, Rob. So that's why it's up there, and appreciate the support. And if you didn't notice, my man, you were also the winner of that Twitter Reacts show the other day, my man, with a brilliant comment. Pick yourself up, Rob, and appreciate the 100%, support.
Big up, Rob. When it comes to Dyer, look, if he stays, he stays. But ultimately, all I'm doing is just sharing my opinion on the guy. And I just think it's more costly if we keep him. And that's just my opinion. When it comes to Sanchez, I think the same again. But look, if people like them, fair enough. I understand and I can accept it. But for me, I mean, we've tried changing managers. We've spent money in midfield. We spent money in other areas. But where we haven't is the centre-back regions. And it's what's continuously let us down over the last few years. So where I'm coming from is just, why not try that next then? Instead of keep going and trying the same things and expecting different results, try something different, which is what we haven't done. And just try this. And that's ultimately where I'm coming from. If we ultimately end up doing it and we're wrong, I'll hold my hands up. No problem. I'll come up just say, you know what, guys? I think I got it wrong. But over the last few years, when I've called out these players, I've called out some of these players. Guess what? None of them are here anymore, the players I've called out. Bar some of these guys, and they're next to go. But all the other players I've called out on, I've been pretty much spot on with. And that's it at the end of the day.
I think most people agree with you, Dave. In fact, I think probably most people agree with you just because they'd rather see it through more of a footballing lens, especially when it comes to Eric Dyer. And I think where Sean and I are coming from is, classically maybe taking a bit of the devil's advocate approach. That certainly is a brave one to be taking from where maybe the club are coming from. And I think honestly, majority of people, even Sean and I ourselves, if we really came down to it, we would rather the club probably make the decision just to take maybe the loss on an Eric Dyer and just kind of move on from it. But if they are going to make this decision, I think we're sort of trying to maybe see what sort of logic there is. But if there really is none there to be, if you feel like there really is no logic behind it, then that's completely worth the debate. And I think
I love the debate
coming from. Yeah.
For me, it's very emotional, but everyone's got their takes, right? But for me, like there's so few areas where we can debate as friends, as mates. Like I love Jack, I love Dave. I think those guys love me. We can have heated debates where we vehemently disagree and just like go through the rationales of why someone might feel this way or that way. It doesn't happen enough in the community. And so whether you like don't like my take or don't like Dave's or don't like Jack's take, like I hope you guys can all appreciate that. At least we're putting our heart on our sleeves here, and it doesn't matter at the end of the what will be. Right, but like it's
honestly,
for me, the conversation is worth having, and it's fun. Like it's fun, and that's the most important thing.
I'm not saying everyone has to agree with me. Of course they don't. For me, look, it's just the only way I have of getting things off my chest. Unfortunately, where I live in a town in Ireland where there's maybe not many Spurs fans to communicate with and stuff like that. And at the end of the day, this is just a way for me to vent my thoughts. And I get, look, because of how harsh I can be with them, some people may not agree, and that's fine. That's fine, no problem, and I can accept other people's things. And so look, Sean, you said things to me on ownerships and stuff like that where maybe I have to opinion.
People hate me, Dave. People hate me about my take on Daniel Levy, right? But we're all Spurs fans. We all want the best. We all just have our own
tensions are just high because Tottenham are fucking shit at the minute, or they're playing shit. They've lost 2 on the bounce, and tensions are just high, and everyone's emotional. Once we start,
it's all love. It all comes from a place of love. Right?
Exactly.
Dermot here with a super chat. Levy will back Conte in January and the summer. The reason why is Conte won't sign a new contract till he does. So Levy will. Conte is here for the long haul.
We haven't spoken about that. I feel like I see that you put the.
I think we kind of missed the chance to. I think we kind of missed the chance.
Have we got to wrap it up?
I think. Well, I kind of want to watch a bit of Champions League myself, Sean. Here, and we are close to 2 hours anyway at this stage, and I don't think we're going to be able to do that in less than 15 minutes. Is what I could imagine talking about. Standoff from Levy, especially with how long we spent on Moon Boots, Eric Dyer. Who knows how long we'll spend on that one? But. Dermot, Dave spoke about this earlier, where it is actually a bit of a symbiotic relationship, the likes of the investment in January with Conte's contract. Are they really going to loosen the purse strings if they're not sure if Conte's going to really show the faith in Spurs? He's going to probably have to make some sort of agreement with them in terms of a contract in order really for there to be the true amount of funds that he needs, I think, in January. And if that's not the case, then I imagine them to spend quite an inconsequential amount if he's not going to be here for the long haul. They probably might not spend very much at all because they know that they can't depend on him to be here for the long haul. They're probably only going to spend it on somebody who they know has made some sort of agreement or some sort of kind of a verbal agreement. Don't want to get back into that again about Spurs' futures. That's how I sort of see it. But Dave, I mean, I think you probably agree with me there. It is a bit of a symbiotic relationship.
I just think it's going to be very interesting how it plays out. Who's going to give? Because someone has to give an inch. Who's it going to be? I'm not so sure, because I think both are just as stubborn. I really believe Tottenham will not give him money in January to spend if he fails to commit, which you can understand. Why would they give him X amount to commit in January when they can do that in the summer on the next project? I can fully understand that, but at the same time, you also have to try and find a way, in my opinion, and this is only is to keep Conte happy, because for me, I think if we keep him here and we can build under him, I think it'll build us a solid foundation and hopefully deliver a couple of trophies. So it's very interesting to see how this plays out over the next couple of months. I mean, Sean, what's your thoughts on it? Do you think any of them will give an inch? Do you think they're both as stubborn as each other?
Yeah, I do. And for me, look, I know I will come on the show on Thursday if that space is still available.
Yeah, yes, it is.
Yeah, I'd like to get involved in it into more detail. So, but what I'd say right now is that how I always say the devil's advocate, somewhat defending Daniel Levy, even though I don't care about Daniel Levy. If someone comes along with 10 billion who wants to buy out the club and then take us to the promised land, I'm all for it. I just don't see it happening. But I think that you have to recognize the difference in leverage, and that Daniel Levy ain't going anywhere anytime soon unless someone pays the money, and Conte could. I think that I want to see compromise, but I think for me, I feel like
Who do you think should compromise in this situation, Sean? Who should compromise?
Both of them. Like I 100%. Daniel Levy. Like I can't. But listen, November the 21st, the financial results are out. Right, because of the pandemic and because of the stadium debt and stuff, we haven't seen a set of financial figures that haven't been impacted by that. So November the 21st, that's going to come out. I will get a better understanding of where we are financially and whether we've righted the ship. But I expect that Tottenham are fully back on course and have money coming in, and if there's any news on the Google stuff, all that crap, right? But for me, I 100% need to hear that Daniel Levy and Enoch are going to back the manager to the tune of, first of all, the £50 million that was never taken in a tranche. There's 150 million, only 100 of it was taken. There's 50 million still there that needs to be taken before the end of the year, as far as I understand it. I want to see that done. And then I also want to see them, go under the mattress and find another 100 million. And in January, that needs to be available. But at the same time, I don't want that to be spent on on a manager's path who's very rigid. I know we're going to talk about this on Thursday. So but last thing I'll say is there's very, very, very few teams and very, very, very few managers that are so rigid with their three at the back, wing back formation. It's not a very common. Most teams play 4-3-3 these days, right? So if you're gonna back him to the tune of 150 million when he hasn't committed, and you know his history of throwing the toys out of the pram and walking away, then if you're going to buy players to suit his formation without his commitment, I think it's dangerous and silly, because the next cab off the rank managerially, whoever it is, and I accept that it's probably going to be a lesser version in terms of success, but that guy probably isn't going to want to play three at the back. So for me, I think you need to have his commitment before the money is spent.
I agree, Sean. I absolutely echo that. And I see why it's delicate. I see why it's a very delicate way of going about it. They're not just throwing 150 million down the drain for a guy that might just leave the following season. It's completely right there, Sean. And thank you as well, Dermot, for the support, my man. And it's a great question. It's a great comment, Dermot. Moondog, I'll move near you, Dave, and you can chat to me. He's looking for some company, especially when it comes to his moon boots bets. I'm not sure if you're the best sort of company for that, Davo, but you guys can have each other, Moondog.
Nah, Moondog, look, I really appreciate that, my man. Really appreciate it. Look, I think where sometimes it comes with, and I've genuinely got this over my life, is because of my dark features and I'm a big guy. Sometimes my passion maybe can be mistaken as aggression. And I think that's maybe where some of it comes from. But just know it is absolutely passion and not aggression. But Moondog, I'll take anyone I can get, my man. Big yourself up, brother.
Big up, Moondog.
Absolute legend. Shawnee, tell us about Spurs Talk Show. I put the link in a few times, brother. Tell us what's about to happen on the channel.
Yeah, look, if you don't mind, for anyone that's watching, I just want to say one quick thing. It never even crossed my mind, and I want to call it out right now. For anyone that's watching that is a paid member of my channel, I can't it hasn't even factored into me, because I haven't been able to do any live streams for about 2 months now. It's a disgrace, and there's 45 people or whatever that are members, that are paying members, whether you're paying £2 a month or £5 a month at the Spurs Talk Show. I'm so very, very sorry. It never even crossed my mind to call this out. I should have done it sooner. Please feel free to cancel your membership, and then I will give, and then like once I get my Wi-Fi fixed, I will, 2 months, 3, 5, 6 months, whatever, before you feel like you've got your money's worth over the last 2 months, if you wanted to become a member again. I'm so very sorry that I haven't been able to do live streams. I do my walks every day, but it just came across my mind that there's people that are paying £2 or £5 a month and they haven't had any live streams to be able to get involved. So if you are watching, I'm very sorry. Feel free to cancel. Of course, you cancel anyway, whatever. But and then I owe you guys a lot of content before you resubscribe. But you can find me at Spurs Talk Show, and I hope you appreciate and understand where I'm coming from. It's not my not my intention. It's my Wi-Fi thing is just a mess right now.
No worries, Shano. No worries.
Big up, Shawnee.
I think people understand your situation. They've been hearing your situation. They definitely understand. But thanks for the notice as well. Neither will I, Moondog. Neither will I. Big up, my man. But I think tomorrow is just going to be pre-match build-up, the likes of the watch-along and all that good stuff. On the likes of Flat Cap, I did just release a video, everybody, where pretty much just kind of just shot on basically Scott Parker for about 13 minutes and pretty much just spoke about how I think his managerial career is headed nowhere because, funny enough, speaking of boards and owners, that guy surely has a lot to say about his boards and owners, and he complains quite a bit. All of a sudden, though, whenever he gets sacked, it seems like everything goes a lot better when Scott Parker leaves whatever club he's been working for. So that's kind of what I spoke about, is perhaps maybe Scott Parker needs to look at himself and not as much the board and the owners that he works for. So that's kind of the video. If you're interested in that and me just kind of just pretty much just having a go at Scott Parker, feel free to take a look at it. But Davo, tomorrow, pre-match build-up, you have a good one prepared?
Yeah, just going to put the finishing touches to it now this evening. A few hours left to do. But look, yeah, pre-match build-up tomorrow. Watch along. There'll be fan cams out after that as well. And post-match fan show as well. So everybody feel free to get on and have your say on the post-match fan show. But hopefully it goes the right way for us tomorrow. But yeah, that's what's coming up. And then Thursday, it's myself, Jack, Daigle, Sean, and Jory on the panel, so it should be absolutely a good debate show, hopefully a very good debate show. But look, guys, I think that's it for this evening. I think we'll wrap it up. think we'll allow you to go off and watch the second half of the Champions League. I want to say a massive thank you to everybody who's come in tonight. Massive thank you to everybody for your comments, for your likes, your support, and the super chats as well. It really does help out absolutely everything we're trying to achieve here. And just generally thank you for absolutely everything. And a massive thank you to Jack, to Sean, and to Benji for today. And guys, we'll see you all back here tomorrow. Win or lose, it doesn't matter. Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
And
And Conte, we try.
Oh, Spurs. Bye.